In an unknown room, a boy wakes up with the alarm on his phone. When he opens his eyes, he stands out. The whole room is painted with red writing. He wonders who could have written all that while he was sleeping. However, strangely, the letters begin to disappear. Then he thinks he must have been hallucinating because he had just woken up. How strange how realistic it seemed, but then he looks around and realizes the room in which he is not his. When he gets up, he wonders what kind of place this is. The instant noodles he ate and the 2 handkerchiefs he threw on the floor are no longer there. Obviously, he gets confused and starts to get scared. He seems to receive memories of another life of someone who is identical to him. In addition, both are orphans, but they followed different paths. Our protagonist studied all his life and entered an incredible university, but the boy whose body he took left school and had a horrible job. Looking at his trembling hand, he wonders if he is in another world, and what was the relationship of those words written with blood on the ceiling. In the memories of the original owner of this body, there is nothing about that. He stays there trying to understand the situation. When someone calls him husband and says it's breakfast time, when he turns around, he sees a woman with pronounced curves. Looking at his thighs, he wonders what this husband thing is about. In this parallel world, did he get married so young? She sits in bed and tells him to get up, it's late. Now the picker already thinks that the transmigration was not so bad. He swallows saliva, thinking that if it were not for this transmigration, he would never have such a beautiful and kind woman. She keeps calling him for breakfast. He does not know if to call her baby, wife or love. Then he decides to go deeper into the memories to find her name, so it would be easier. He begins to think and strangely finds nothing. His mind seems to be divided. There is no name, no experiences, no hobbies, no favorite position, nothing. Absolutely nothing about her in his memory. He looks back, hesitating, realizing that she is still. And he already knows that this supposed wife is strange. He looks again and a fly lands in his eye. Doubtful, he asks who she is. She stays still for a second. Then he says that he seems to be able to see, already opening a monstrous mouth. Sweating cold, the protagonist says that he is just a little confused, that he will think about it properly. But now she has already become a giant creature saying that he can see. He cries for a second. But in the next one, he is devoured. Suddenly, he wakes up in bed again, sweating cold and wondering what happened. He looks up, sure it was all a dream, just to see the words in blood once again there. He can't read them, things disappear, and he thinks there could be a clue there. Looking at his own hand, he thinks he will have to pretend to be blind. But when he puts his hand on his head, he knows. In the memories of the owner of this body, he was not blind, so it makes no sense. He is a guy who always lived alone and never saw or heard anything out of the ordinary. That means he can't let this woman know that he can see her. For now, he will have to pretend that she does not exist. A hand crosses the door and calls him, saying that he has just woken up and that it is breakfast time. He seductively approaches her, while he thinks he will have to ignore her and see how the old owner lived. She puts the Dragon Balls in play and asks if he is awake. Sweating cold, he knows he can't move or see, or otherwise he will die. But suddenly she turns her neck and approaches him, while he insists that he cannot show any reaction. But she keeps getting closer, and suddenly her tongue comes out of her mouth. When he touches her face, he shows a reaction, and then she knows he can see. His face begins to be consumed by a curse and suddenly explodes. In the next second, he opens his eyes and stands up again. But now he is angry with that damn woman. The poor boy wakes up sweating cold and tries to stop to reason and begins to wonder. Is he being resurrected or is it a time loop? Apparently, it's like when you save a point in a game. He grabs his phone knowing that she wanted to force him to show a reaction. He puts TikTok videos of girls dancing to pretend that he is distracted. When once again she appears behind him and says that it is breakfast time. She calls her husband and asks why he is looking at other women like that in front of her. He begins to talk to himself, saying that he loves that girl from the live streaming. Meanwhile, his wife asks if she doesn't like it. She approaches and says that she knows she doesn't have a vision problem, so why is the phone so close? Is he looking at her? He plays with his phone again, wondering if it can't even seem strange. However, he calms down a bit and she did not show any reaction. Then he looks for other live transmissions again, but then he gets scared. She appears transmitting live on his phone. He gets up and throws the phone to the bed, scared. While he trembles a bit, she behind him says she can see. She opens her monstrous mouth to eat it. But now he throws himself to punch him, but she dodges it. And then there is nothing he can do. A bite to the arm, he agonizes and dies once again. While she eats the pieces, he wonders if that is really what is left of him. And with that, he begins to lose consciousness again. Once again she says it's breakfast time. And he approaches her, overshadowing him. Until the 6th time he resurrected, he was still scared just because she approached his face, and he died multiple times because he couldn't act very well. In the 8th time, he tried to escape from that room. But there was no way, and she realized it could be seen. So we concluded that he should pretend he liked it, since there was no escape. As soon as she came to give him breakfast, he said she was amazing. His plan was to take advantage of that as much as possible. But in the end, he was hungry and she ate everything. And so he died 13 times in a row while trying to find some way to calm down. Some people who go crazy become very stringy. But for him, death was still coming. He got to 14, 15, 16, and with each death, he received new memories of the owner of that body. He began to understand a little about that world and how it was different from his world. This is a place full of bizarre stories. In the 18th death, he wondered why he was reviving. Who wrote those words with blood and why did they disappear as soon as he looked at them? Once again, he opens his eyes, wondering who is responsible for all this. He doesn't know who it is, but he knows that his wife is one of them. She is a monster. And he began to repeat to himself that she should die because he deserved to live. Once again, she entered the door, calling her husband and saying that it was time for breakfast. He got up knowing that every time she comes to do this, but she never forces physical contact. Standing at the door, she asked if she wanted to start the day by eating a little hot and wet meat. He came extremely close, but went by as expected. She can only do something when she is sure that he can see her. He went to prepare some food while she, desperate by his side, said that she had already prepared breakfast and was ready for him. The poor boy sighed, thinking that the more beautiful, the better the lie. She is saying that she is ready, but clearly there is nothing prepared. He made a snack, knowing that only when leaving that room would he find something about his wife. When he went to bite the snack, she had transformed on the floor, asking if he was seeing something. He went to the door to open it, knowing that he needed to get out of there. And she was visible at the doorknob, asking where he was going and why he did not stay at home with her. But he just opened the door and left the room, saying to himself that no one kills him 18 times and leaves with his own. Now he wants revenge. As soon as he finds a way to eliminate her, he will come back here. But as soon as he opens the apartment door, he is scared when he looks at the sky. The world is red and is full of deformed creatures. In front of him, only the silhouettes of people. Behind a building, an eye watches him and a giant rabbit with a cape passes by. He is scared by that and begins to laugh like a psychopath, saying that this world is really interesting, but he feels something strange and vomits on the sidewalk. Suddenly, someone appears, asking if the uncle is okay. He looks surprised, and it is just a girl who wants to know if he is sick. He tells her that he is fine and that he can call him older brother. Caressing his head, he thinks that she is so pretty that he would love to have a daughter, but she deforms instantly, saying that she can see. His heart stops and looks up. The girl turned into a giant demon with a sword. Our protagonist is speechless and then begins to laugh like a madman, saying that this world is very, very interesting. He likes her and tells her that he really likes that look. Because that way, when he kills her, he will not feel any guilt. He will end all the weirdos in this place without any remorse. But this time, he was shattered. Once again, he wakes up in bed with the wife of balloons asking if his husband is okay. The sun is already rising. The poor boy thinks that having breakfast 20 times a day is really exhausting. Sometime later, he is sitting on a bench in the park. Once again, the girl approaches and asks where her mother is, if she can take her home, while he is thinking about madness and all kinds of weirdness in this place. One type is completely strange and irrational. They are aggressive, but they cannot affect anything, like the air. The other type are the creatures that are identical to humans. They do nothing but try to get close to you, but as soon as they get a reaction they make their move. Just like that wife. She knows that no normal person in that world can perceive her existence, but still she clings to them. Why do they want that? She thinks that maybe these creatures want to integrate into human life. Sometime later, he is holding his phone and receives a 3-cent payment. To survive in this world, at least he will need a little money to find out what he needs. In the work group, a boy named Gouda is calling him. The name of our protagonist is Jifu Fangxiu. He works selling apartments for a company and knows that he has not received the commission for one that he recently sold, so he sends a message saying that he is going to solve that. And he accelerates on his bike. When he gets there, strangely, it is a hospital instead of the company building. The place looks more like an abandoned building. He is sweating cold at the door, wondering if this is the place to sell. He arrives at the door and his phone rings. He says he is going up and asks if everyone is in the office. People say yes, that the owner's son tried to call him several times, but he did not answer. The protagonist says that he is fine, that then he will go up. Our boy realizes that this place is definitely affected by reality, but the people on the call did not seem to be bad. He finds it strange but also interesting. Walking down the hall, he suddenly bumps into something. He feels that he touched something soft and wonders what it was. He calmly reaches with his hand, wanting to know if that is the limit to which he can reach. But what he touches are 2 clairvoyant magic spheres that predict a pleasant future. The picker blushes. And suddenly, he feels something. A slap falls on his face. A girl appears screaming that she will complain about him, and he runs to the guard while he does not understand what is happening. When he looks up, he says Academia Belu, but as soon as he blinks, the place becomes the abandoned hospital again. He reaches for a hospital wall, but strangely his hand goes through it. He realizes that he cannot interact with the physical form of that, and he thinks that maybe it is like the creatures that need certain conditions. Once again, he passes his hand through the wall, and with that, he crosses it. He feels a little dizzy and sees an abandoned corridor. Sometime later, he has already looked in several rooms, but they are all empty. But in one of the doors, there is a strong smell of blood. Doubtful, once again he tries to pass through it. He ends up in a room where there seems to be a girl on the floor crying. He keeps looking and she starts to get up. And she looks at him, calling him older brother. But now he is resistant and ignores her, passing through the wall. As soon as he goes to the other side, he faces another creature, but he keeps walking. Even the monster seems confused, and he realizes that there are dozens of strange things there. Each place he enters has a lot of strange things, and the strange thing is that some rooms are open in a way that they could escape. Now it is improving and does not show any reaction, all thanks to the beloved wife who killed him 18 times. Suddenly he sees some papers on the ground. They talk about experiment number 128 that underwent a transformation. He bends down to pick them up, wondering if all the transformed are really human. But unfortunately, he can't even go to the page to know what is written, since he does not belong to that world. Suddenly something happens through him. He gets up, and it was the hair of a monster on the ceiling. She descends next to his face and asks why he is there. Is he looking to explore the mysteries of life with her? He ignores her while he thinks that perhaps the best place to go is the director's office. The building of the psychiatric hospital is the same as the memory of the owner of the body, which should have been a sales company, and the director's office is where the old staff room used to be. He decides to go up the stairs to see if there is something there. As he walks down the corridor, someone calls his brother Siu and asks what he is doing there. Suddenly, a chubby boy appears, screaming at him, asking how he dares to come to work if he has already been fired. But Fancy walks down the corridor and pushes them both to one side, thinking that there is nothing on this floor. The boy with glasses seems confused, and the boss is cursing him, asking why he is going to the second floor and telling the boy with glasses to stop him. But our protagonist is already walking there, and finally finds the director's office. Someone shouts for him to stop, but he already has his hand on the door handle. The friends behind him are going crazy, saying that everything is over, but just by looking at the leg, you already know what's coming. Look at the waist, look at the mouth. In fact, the colleague was already being crushed. People ask who the protagonist is and what he is doing there, and suddenly he grabs his arm. She tells him to let her go and asks what he is doing, but he only throws her aside, saying that she is too noisy. She falls, and the boy goes to help her without doing anything, while he finds a paper on the desk. And as expected, there is some kind of great secret in this psychiatric hospital. The message says that if he wants to receive the gift of fate and discover the secrets of this world, he has to go to room 520. He wonders if this letter was for him, and leaves, wanting to know how they knew he would come. He is in building C, room 520. Suddenly the lamp explodes. The friend with glasses is still following them, while the other three who stayed behind say they are afraid. He turns on his phone, saying that something is wrong. The friend next to him says that he is acting strange today, because he is not talking to anyone. He uses the phone to illuminate the second floor, and realizes that he is no longer in the psychiatric hospital, but in the old company. The boy who has fun asks for the phone of the fat guy, who says he has no signal either. He tells him not to worry, because with his status, he can access more than he imagines. But if he is not mistaken, all these things point to the fact that they have entered a strange world. A whole place that once was a normal reality now seems to be suffering anomalies. The people who were working are still worried about not delivering the service. One of the guards in the building asks if everything is okay, and says he will take a look to see what happened. One of the girls crouches to pick up her phone and turns on the flashlight, but says she is too weak. The protagonist is also there. He turns on his flashlight and asks the boy with glasses why his light is also so low. People are questioning the blonde boy about what he said about having entered a strange world, when suddenly he loses his calm and tells everyone to shut up, saying that they need to stay calm because that is the only way to survive. People remain silent, seeing that he suddenly got stressed, and the boy explains that, in simple terms, they have entered a world full of ghosts. Basically, it is an alternate dimension where they live. People remain silent for a second and ask the guard who went to check the light. 3 minutes have passed and he has not returned. Tan once again warns that in this world the rules of ghosts cannot be violated, or they will die. The fat boy, trembling, asks what they are going to do now then. He replies that they urgently need to find a way to escape from there, or everyone in that place will die. The protagonist is sweating cold and hears a sound behind him. Due to the familiar feeling, he knows that it is a ghost approaching. He warns everyone that one is about to arrive. People tell him to stop joking because there is no ghost there. But one of the girls is grabbed by the hair, while Fang Xi watches people scream, until he says that Zhou Lai has already left. The girl with glasses is scared, saying that she must have moved away. She was right next to him and starts calling her friend, telling him to say something. Nobody there can see anything properly due to the darkness. Yu Tan asks the protagonist if he saw the appearance of the ghost. He replies that, Unfortunately, he could not see it since the girl disappeared suddenly. At that moment, everyone begins to doubt Feng Xiu, saying that he is acting strangely. Yutan says he doesn't seem to be afraid. Could he be a spiritual master? Confused, he asks what that is. The boy finds it strange that Feng Xiu does not know that he is a spiritual master, but he is too calm. His identity is in question. The boy explains that a spiritual master is someone who can control his spiritual energy, and in moments like these, they are the necessary people. Feng Xiu asks if this of being a spiritual master is something that is learned in the kingdom of the strange. If so, he wants to know how to do it. Once again, Tan notes that he is very calm and confident, so maybe he is the key to getting out of there. And then he explains that to get out of that world, you need to gather the power of ghosts. You must fulfill two conditions simultaneously. The first is to go through the fear between life and death, simulating an emotional trauma, and the second is to come into contact with the ghost to allow its power to invade your soul. But you must be careful, since the ghostly power is like a bloody garment. Although it covers your body, it also stains your soul. When hearing these words, Feng Xiu is thoughtful, especially because he knows that after multiple deaths, he avoids contact with ghosts so as not to die. From the wife to all the street creatures, they are mere illusions as long as he does not interact with them. However, when a ghost crosses reality, it can kill without the need to be seen. So maybe, if he can contact them, he can eliminate them. Feng Xiu wonders if this is a good thing. Remembering his wife, he says that he is crazy to become a spiritual master and end her, when suddenly, another person from that place disappears. Tan begins to go crazy, telling everyone to shut up, or they will attract more ghosts. Fof approaches and asks what they are going to do. He is afraid to disappear. Feng Xiu says it's 2 and 3 minutes. Precisely for men, it is a 3-minute interval, and for women, it is 2. The guard disappeared, 3 minutes later, the girl disappeared, and 2 minutes later, the other boy disappeared. Following this logic, there are 3 minutes left for another of them to disappear. He begins to leave, and the boys ask him where he is going and if he is trying to kill himself. Feng Xiu says they better start looking for a solution too, or they will all die in that room. Suddenly Tan points it out and tells him to stay still because no one is going to leave that room. But the protagonist ignores him and says that considering that there are 8, in 20 minutes there will be no one left. Feng Xiu looks back and warns that anyone who tries to stop him will die before the ghosts. Walking down the corridors, the friend with glasses asks why they never find the stairs, while Feng Xiu recognizes the lights as the same as they were in the hospital. Suddenly he realizes that they are now back in the hospital. A friend asks if they are hallucinating because as they remember, they were in the company. Why are they now in the horror hospital? Feng Xiu is now sure that the company and the hospital are overlapping in this reality. The hospital devoured the company. At that moment, they see a red pool, the entire corridor is dirty, and they recognize the uniforms there as if they were from the company. Feng Xiu concludes that the ghosts take 2 minutes with the women and 3 with the men because that is the time that takes them to eat each type of person. He says they still have some time, and the boy with glasses says that it looks like they are still eating jialing. The protagonist finds it strange because, in the hospital, they were all trapped, and the first time he passed through here, there was not all this blood in the corridors. The cuts on the clothes prove that they are using some sharp blade, and he found only one like that. Something is coming out of the ceiling. And remember that the only one that moves freely is the ghost doctor who saw right above him that time. They hear some sounds coming from that direction, and when they look, it is the group that was in the room, coming to ask what they are going to do. They feel a little uncomfortable, and the chubby boy asks if they found something when they got down there first. Suddenly, they scream, and the girl says that there is a lot of blood there. Everyone recognizes it as from the clothes of their allies. Yitten asks if they were all devoured. Fearful, Fei begs to leave. Yitten says that they really need to flee as quickly as possible. They ask Feng Xiu to guide them, but he says nothing. After a moment of silence, Feng Xiu announces that the time has come. Fei asks what kind of moment he is talking about, and behind them, the hair is falling. Hearing the sounds, they turn slowly, and from the ceiling, the ghost doctor is approaching. The second Fei gets scared, the creature approaches them both. They all try to run desperately, telling the monster to stay away. But something stops Yitten. It's Fei who had fallen and is begging to be saved. But when he sees the monster approaching, he slaps the girl, telling her to let him go. Seeing everyone flee, Feng Xiu remembers the moment he saw the doctor. And on the ground, Fei begs not to be abandoned, but the creature is already holding her by the hair. With tears in her eyes, Fei begged, but the lights went out and blood rained in that place. The friend with glasses was shocked to see that Fei was dead. And the monster didn't stop and kept hitting her several times. Feng Xiu noticed that the monster's scalpel techniques were extremely advanced, so he probably practiced a lot. He and his friend were standing there, but the creature didn't seem to be paying attention. Doing 2 surgeries at the same time would be almost impossible. The monster keeps the scalpel and opens his mouth to eat Fei. Feng Xiu understands that the instinct to eat humans is just because he became a ghost. He begins to approach, and his friend asks him what he is doing next to the monster. Without fear, Feng Xiu hits her in the face, but he is surprised. His skin feels hard like steel. Remember that all the creatures he found are extremely powerful compared to humans. The only way is to become a spiritual master to change this situation. The friend calls him, saying they need to escape, but Feng Xiu says it's okay because that creature only kills one person at a time. That means that when he is eating it is the safest time for everyone. The friend says that soon the monster will end, but the protagonist says that Fei Fei had an extra round piece of meat there that will make it take a little longer. The friend, hearing that, vomits. While Feng Xiu remembers that he needs to absorb the damn energy of the creatures, and in a dimension like this, near the ghosts, is where the most concentrated power is. A physical contact would be the best way. Seeing the ghost's thighs, he palms them to see if they are infected. The monster's legs are inverted, and Feng Xiu palms them. The friend tells him to wake up. That this is not the time for this kind of thing. But Feng Xiu only says that if he is afraid he can flee. The boy says it's okay. If so, they should go with everything. He approaches the protagonist to touch the ghost's legs. But soon he realizes that they are very cold. While he palms them, the friend says that nothing has changed. And Feng Xiu says they will continue. The friend says he never thought the first contact would be with a ghost. But these legs are really too long. The protagonist begins to think that this boy has some hidden potential. Since before, he was dying of fear, but now he was seeing. He announces that a minute has passed. They will bother her for another 30 seconds, and then they will run immediately. As soon as the clock marks 1:30 on the phone, he gets up, saying it's time to flee. The friend asks if they can really escape and where he is going. Feng Xiu is sure of where he is going, since he observed the hospital very well when he walked there, and they will use the advantage of the terrain to create distance from the doctor. But hair appears in front of him. He wonders if he miscalculated and how he finished eating so fast. The amount of meat Fei Fei had was enough. Then he notices 2 silicone implants on the ground. Everything was false, and now the ghost is behind him. She makes a cut right on his neck. With that, the boy's screen darkens. After his head rolls through the air, he opens his eyes again. But now he is back in the moment with that monster. Just when the friend said it was very cold. Feng Xiu concludes that the time loops are defined by events. Or maybe it's like a game where you have to pass a level, and part of it is saved. The friend is having fun, but he knows that the last time he died was because of the silicone. So this time, he can't make the same mistake. He quickly grabs the boy and tells them to get up. But drooling, the picker says it's the first time. They can stay a little longer. Feng Xiu warns that everything there is silicone, so if they don't run now, they'll both die. The friend is shocked, now understanding why he was so big. With that, the two are already running down the stairs and meet the people who were also going down. The desperate crowd starts running faster than them. But Feng Xiu grabs the handkerchief and throws himself in front of everyone. The chubby boy says he thought it was the ghost and tells him not to scare them like that. The boy with glasses wanted to know why everyone was running so slowly. The boy said they weren't slow since they had already gone down 20 floors. But Zhao Ao said that was impossible since he and Feng Xiu only went down 3 to reach them. People tell him to shut up and stop lying. But Tang understands that the ghost is creating false paths. He warns that monsters like that can create illusions in which you are trapped. Feng Xiu becomes thoughtful and observes the discussion. Then he approaches and tells everyone to throw any spare objects to the ground to mark the path. With that, they scream and start throwing everything they have in their bags and pockets. Then he tells everyone to go down the stairs quickly. They start running. After a while, they find everything again. The boys recognize the money and the bottles they had thrown, but Feng Xiu was interested in the little shirt. Suddenly, Tang screams and says that only a spiritualist can see the exit. He tells everyone to activate their power and try to see something. He joins his hands, saying that he does not know if the previous experience was enough to release the powers, but he hopes it is to escape from there. People are confused, not knowing how they are going to do that. They begin to try as the boy did while Feng Xiu observed the stairs. Remember that the exits of these corridors were on the right side, so it must be something similar. Seeing this, Tang asks what he is going to do again. He says he does not mind praying and that he is more interested in finding clues to escape from there. Ao was impressed that Feng Xiu was still very calm. While Tang thought he did not hesitate for a second when the monster appeared. The strange thing is that now they ran down the stairs and found the two of them again. Not to mention that they both spent at least a minute with the monster in the corridor. So, what happened? For some reason, the psychopath concludes that they should be taking advantage of the ghost. It makes a lot of sense, but obviously, he thinks that is not possible, thank God. Feng Xiu was touching a wall when Ao asked him what he was doing. He was counting between 10, 12, 15 and said to stop. He said he found it. The friend was impressed that there really was a door. And Tang appeared, asking if they really found it, and ran. The problem was how to open it. He imagined where the lock should be and moved his hand in the void. That opened the door, from which an energy came out. Feng Xiu was about to be the first to enter. But Tang collided with him and ran out, saying that they were finally safe. Everyone desperately passed by trying to escape. Ao asked why he let everyone go ahead and how he was so calm. Feng Xiu knew very well that when facing that creature, there was no reason to try to be fast. When a chubby and nosy guy appeared, telling the two to run or they would be used as shields to die. Feng Xiu's plan was obviously to see who would be trapped. That way, the ghost would stop and he could increase his spiritual power. People continued to the front, desperately fleeing, until suddenly they had to choose between two directions. This created a divergence in the team, since everyone wanted other people to go ahead to test the paths. And Tang once again asked Feng Xiu what they should do. If he found that iron door, he must know the exit from there. Feng Xiu was not very interested in helping, since everyone kept pushing him and waiting for him to die. The group kept screaming, telling him to speak quickly because the ghost was approaching. Feng Xiu just said he didn't care about that, thinking that, for him, everyone there was just a tool. At that moment, the ghost doctor was invincible, and what he had to do was win time. While he goes down the right path, he thinks that to get out of there he will have to sacrifice lives. As soon as the group sees him take that path, they start running, and a hand is heard coming from behind. The chubby boy is the last one, and Feng Xiu knows very well that she has arrived. Soon, on the roof she is preparing to attack him. Seeing everyone flee, he approaches the last one. As the hare approaches, the chubby boy panics, saying he can't die. Seeing a boy in front, he thinks he didn't give him permission to run faster, so he grabs him by the neck and throws him back. The blonde falls to the ground, calling the chubby boy, but something has already cut his neck, and the walls are painted with blood. Seeing how the boy did that, Feng Xiu thinks that he is no different from a ghost who lost his sanity, but now he needs to increase his spirituality. The group asks what he is going to do, and there he is, once again, facing the ghost. The sick friend approaches, saying that he cannot have fun without inviting him, saying that his skin is soft and cold as that is like ice cream. Feng Xiu thinks that the boy suddenly became a poet. Seeing how crazy he is, maybe he also awakens spiritual power, and together they can escape. Sometime later, they are fleeing again, and Feng Xiu asks if he is not afraid to die. Ao says that waiting for death is worse than being killed directly. In addition, he trusts him because he is there. At that moment, they arrive at a cafeteria. Everyone is starving and thirsty since they have been running for a long time. Tang begins to grab everything, saying that he will distribute it among the others later. The chubby boy approaches, asking to share a little, when suddenly a girl says she found something and he tells her not to move. It is a door and he approaches, saying that they are saved. But as soon as he opens it, there is another door at the end of the corridor. Feng Xiu notices that the light there is more suppressed than before. As he approaches the door, Feng Xiu says that it is not locked with a key. When opening it, it is only a service room. That was the end of the path they chose, and the problem now is that to return, they will have to wait for someone to die and distract the doctor. The protagonist began to return in search of the ghost while everyone cursed him for choosing the wrong path. Obviously, he didn't like it because he didn't ask anyone to follow him. Ao commented that everyone should do what they wanted, and Feng Xiu's brother didn't force anyone to follow him. A chubby boy complained, saying it didn't matter since it seemed that he chose without knowing anything. Tang tried to calm everyone down, saying that they should focus and survival was the priority. He said that according to what he observed, that creature attacks a person at a time and rests for 2 to 3 minutes. The choice now is to choose someone to serve as a distraction and create an opportunity for everyone to escape. Feng Xiu immediately understood what was going to happen. Tang came and hit him on the chest, saying that if it weren't for him, no one would be there, so he would have to be the chosen one to pay for the sins. Ao asked what he was doing, and Tang shouted for everyone to help. But Feng Xiu intervened and put him in a strangling key. While they were separating him, he called the chubby boy to help, who now also put Ao in a strangling key and fell with him to the ground. Suddenly, the door closed suddenly. Feng Xiu was isolated outside. The group asked what he was doing. Feng Xiu said he never imagined that he would be so interested in people. Apparently, they are stranger than ghosts. He thanked them for their interest, but warned that he would make everyone stop next time. And with that, he died again. When his body fell to the ground, the group opened the door to run out. Ao, with tears in his eyes, went to help Feng. And while Tang looked back, smiling, he saw something terrifying. Even dead, Feng Xiu was smiling and told him to just wait a little longer. Back to the moment when he warned that it was silicone. He ran out, but this time smiling macabrely. The boys were running down the stairs, trying to escape, thinking that a ghost was coming. When once again he fell in front of them, ignoring everyone, he began to run, while they asked him what he was doing. As he descended the steps, counting, the group was once again dealing with the problem of walking in circles. He reached the door and opened it without fear. No one understood how he found it so fast. Tang asked if he had awakened his spiritual powers, but he only ignored them and warned that they had a minute before the ghost appeared. Seeing this, Tang smiled, saying that it seemed that he had indeed awakened his powers. If he helped him escape, he would pay him 5 million. But Feng Xiu only smiled, saying that there was no need to hurry because he needed to solve something before leaving. When Tang was about to ask what it was, Feng Xiu knelt on the floor. The poor boy moaned and fell to the ground in pain. Feng Xiu said he should use the 5 million to treat that. Agonizing, Tang said he could pay even more if he just asked. But now the protagonist was cold. The rest of the company began to curse him, asking how he could be so dirty. But Feng Xiu warned that it was impossible to escape the ghost's speed, but with Tang on the ground, everyone was saved. The group was confused about this notion of being saved. Until suddenly, another blow landed and now the chubby boy twisted on the ground. Feng Xiu said he should have died a long time ago. Ao and the rest of the group wondered if he had gone crazy, and if he was going to do this to everyone. Feng Xiu said not, because he needed at least one living person. Ao said it was a good plan. As the group began to question whether he really was human, he pointed the way and said they were running out of time, but the group began to suspect, as it was not leading the way. Feng Xiu said he would simply stay there to touch some muscles. The group was confused, and the psychopath friend said he definitely wanted to stay then. The ghost of the doctor approached once more. As soon as the group saw her, they resumed their flight, but they stopped right behind the wall to see what would happen. While the protagonist watched the monster approach, on the ground, Tang begged them to save him. But soon he realized that his pants were wet. Feng Xiu's kick had caused an internal bleeding, and he jumped to grab his leg, saying they would die together. But Feng Xiu simply stepped on his hand and told him not to worry. He would stay there, right next to him, watching him die. The monster grabbed him by the neck, and with that, the boy left. Painting covered Feng Xiu's face, which even licked it. The guy was really crazy. He even said that the taste of revenge was not so bad, but at that moment, he felt something in his heart, and he wondered how it was possible that his chest was beating so fast. Suddenly, he heard his wife's voice calling him, and he thought it would be incredible to see her shattered like that guy. He began to advance towards the ghost, and the group wondered if that was really his plan. He stared at Ao, and he remembered that at the time of his death, the boy had called for him. With that, he invited his friend to join him, but Ao did not seem to be very enthusiastic, and everyone called him a ghost. At that moment, Feng Xiu realized that having died those 20 times and having experienced so much madness was causing him to no longer have emotional fluctuations. His humanity was slowly disappearing, and at that moment, he and Cao Ao were completely different. But he had no choice, so he would not force his friend. But suddenly Cao said that in that company, he was the only person he could trust. As he was his only true friend, he would trust his plan. But he said it looks terrifying with all that wine on his face. But soon he approached with a smile to activate more spiritual power. While they were having fun, Ao asked why he attacked those two. Feng Xiu said that considering the speed of the ghost, it was impossible to escape. And as soon as she reached them, those two, having higher positions, would discard the others. Suddenly he felt something and asked Ao if he felt a coldness approaching his body. Ao said no, that it was normal. While Feng Xiu realized that it was not an illusion. What he was feeling was an influence of the power of the ghost. He noticed that the connection was very weak, but it seemed to be reaching a critical point. Perhaps it was the precursor to obtain spiritual powers. But now Ao seemed motivated, wanting to find this cold region. Suddenly he warned them to run. However, Feng Xiu said there was no problem since the chubby boy was lying close. The boy smiled, saying that was really good news. But he asked what he felt when awakening spirituality since he was not feeling anything. Feng Xiu explained that what he probably lacked were situations of life or death. The mental state had not yet reached the necessary point, so he did not feel it. Ao found that strange and wondered when Feng Xiu had experienced something like that. Seeing the ghost lick the face of the chubby boy, he said it was something good because it would take about 5 minutes. They would have to use this time to absorb as much as possible. And with that, the cold energy began to invade Fang's body. He began to try to perceive where he was going, and soon he felt that it seemed to go towards his brain and his heart. Now they were turning into blocks of ice. A cold blade cut through his entire body, and after being destroyed, a light appeared on his chest, a flash that concentrated and became a red sphere. As soon as Feng Xiu regained consciousness, he realized that all his 5 senses had become agitated. Even his speed of thought and control over his body had improved. It was as if more parts of the world had become available to him. But he realized that he had awakened less than 1% of his spiritual capacity. The ability seemed to be related to the desire he felt. He wondered what that was and suddenly felt a shake in his heart. He agonized and wondered if his ability was to cause pain. The sequence of deaths made his greatest desire was to return that feeling. Whether it was negative emotions, mental distortions or pain, it could make the enemies experience everything. Out of nowhere, he smiled and started laughing, saying that now he was incredible with this ability. Seeing that he was going crazy, Ao asked if it had worked. While Feng Xiu concluded that he had received the best ability possible for him. Remembering his beloved wife, he was in a trance while Ao called him, saying that 2 minutes had passed. But Feng Xiu only told him to step aside, since he was going to test his power. Immediately, Ao stepped back, saying that it seemed to have worked. and that was very good. Then he approached Dr. Ghost, concentrating the power in his hand. He knew he had everything he had experienced in those days. He knew that the more times he died, the more pain he would accumulate and the stronger he would become. As long as he continued to be revived, he could become infinitely stronger. He hit the ghost in the face, saying that he wanted her to experience this masterpiece. The blow hit her hard, but the power seemed to dissipate. She was thrown back and dropped this scalpel while crying on the ground. But Feng Xiu immediately realized that his blow had been mediocre, and the little spirituality he had now was exhausted. The blow had not hurt the ghost, and she did not seem to have felt the pain he experienced. While thinking about this, Ao said that maybe it was time to flee, or they could touch her again. He thought that maybe putting this energy in weapons would be the best way. And speaking of weapons, there was a fit on the ground for him to use it. He bent down to pick it up, but soon he felt an energy. That leaf seemed impossible to lift, and his power immediately attacked Fang's heart. He could see every time that weapon had been used the infinite amount of pain he had absorbed, but with so much resentment, he wondered if he could use it to finish off the doctor. He told Ao to stand aside. As soon as he did, he attacked the doctor right on the back of the neck. But he did nothing. Ao pulled off his shirt and said he didn't even leave a scratch. How were they going to kill her like that? The friend kept hitting her on the back. And Feng Xiu concluded that without spiritual power, it would not work. At that moment, he understood that revenge was not possible at that moment. She was getting up, and he dragged Ao, saying it was time to run. As soon as the monster got up, he wondered where the scalpel was. Walking with Ao, he perceived the presence of someone. With his sharp senses, he could perceive the presence of others. Ao asked where they were going when the two who had been hiding appeared. Ao called them cowards to flee and now returned to ask for help. But Feng Xiu said there was only one solution. They would have to go through each of the 4 doors. Everyone was scared, and the boys said that with the monster following them, they only had time to try one. Feng Xiu ignored them and walked away, saying he was not forcing anyone to follow him. As soon as they heard a sound behind them, they knew she was approaching. Feng Xiu realized that by stealing the scalpel, the ghost's behavior would change. He opened the door and told everyone to run. They began to climb the stairs desperately. As soon as they closed the door, it was destroyed from behind, and the ghost began to ascend the corridor. With a macabre face, he told him to return it. He ignored everyone on the stairs and went face to face with Feng, telling him to hand over the scalpel. Feng Xiu managed to defend himself when she attacked, but then she opened her mouth and went for his neck. At the east door, they died. They went to another room. This time he ended up painting the chubby boy somewhere else. Once again, he stole the scalpel and went in another direction, smiling. They ran to the north door and reached the elevator. But as soon as he tried to enter, the monster opened the door and finished it too. Then he tried the south door. But once again, he was caught by the malicious and flexible ghost. Really cruel since he died. He tried the last door. He did not want to accept that by stealing the scalpel, he would always die. Although she was extremely fast, she still had the ability to revive to change the trajectory every time. In a way, it was as if he could foresee the future. He knew that there was a safe passage to the left, but something got to his neck and once again, he died. It had already been the 9th time, and now he was sure he could do it. He guided everyone in that same direction. The ghost appeared behind everyone and approached him. She once again went directly to Fang. At that moment, Ao turned around and told him to be careful. Just when she was about to hit him in the face, he managed to dodge her, making her fail. And he was face to face with the doctor. She was confused about how he had dodged, and Ao found it impossible that he had done it. Smiling like a madman, Fang fled. Once again, she tried to hit him, and he managed to dodge. After numerous deaths, he had learned her attack patterns. In addition, the pain was strengthening his body and increasing his spiritual power. Ao was impressed with his ability to predict movements. The ghost didn't like this at all. He prepared to jump and bite him. But he was sure he now knew his trajectory completely. When she came towards him once more, he turned to one side and dodged again. The ghost was already going crazy, telling him to die. The group couldn't believe he was escaping from her. While Ao thought this was the power of a spiritual master. Running towards the door, he once again saw the exit. Sure, they would escape now, but strangely, the ghost stopped in front of him. He was confused, and she told him not to leave while he was shaking. Feng Xiu found it strange because she seemed scared. With that, she fled, launching a precise attack on poor Ao. The poor boy backed away, wondering what that cold thing was. He ran to Feng Xiu and asked him what had happened. He said everything was normal, according to logic, that was the way to survival. But he realized that even the doctor fled when he saw that place. That meant it might not be the exit, but something so terrifying that even she was afraid. He knew it was the mouth of an abyss. The group kept asking why he didn't run. He sat down, saying it was good to rest for a while. After thinking a little, he had an idea and told everyone to get up. Once again, they walked through those corridors of the hospital, and he slowly approached the metal door, wondering if there was really a great danger outside. As he began to open it, Ao asked if it would not be risky to do so. He said they had no choice but to go when he entered the darkness. There, he couldn't see anything at all, and the place was so quiet that he could hear his thoughts. The darkness had devoured the path he came through, so the only option was to move forward. He kept moving forward and forward. It seemed that the same sense of time had been consumed. It was as if the path had no end. After walking what seemed like an eternity, he opened his eyes and found himself in front of the entrance to the academy, making him wonder if he had really escaped. Everyone ran, and Ao celebrated that they had finally escaped. The boy wanted to get out of there as quickly as possible, and Ao called Fan, telling him to run too. But Fan knew something was wrong. When he looked back, he remembered. The only visible thing was the school, and the hospital had disappeared. Ao said he just wanted to go home and rest because the day had been exhausting. It was then that Fan noticed something. He started running around, saying he had disappeared. There were no ghosts in the city. He couldn't accept that he had escaped for no reason. He could accept that the hospital disappeared, but not the disappearance of all the ghosts. How could he take revenge on his beloved wife? He found himself in front of a car, sighing she had to die at his hands. That's why he needed to go home, but the driver braked, and now he was in the passenger seat, murmuring to himself that she couldn't just disappear like that. He didn't want his wife to disappear that way. As soon as the taxi stopped, he ran home desperately. The driver complained that he hadn't paid, but he didn't care and ran up the stairs, saying that that world couldn't disappear. He entered his house, screaming that she couldn't leave him like that, but the place seemed normal. After checking all the rooms, he fell to the ground, saying that she had killed him 18 times. How could he live without her for the rest of his life? All that suffering at the hands of the ghost doctor was to take revenge. He accumulated rage and pain to end the ghosts, but now they had all disappeared. Lying in bed, he wondered where he would direct all that hatred. And now, without any feeling, what was the meaning of life? At that moment, he received a message on his phone, telling him to check the news. The Bailu Academy was burning. He immediately saw that the news reported a fire engulfing the entire building. More than 11 people died, including some of the bosses there. Psychopath Feng Xiu began to laugh because the message said that they had found his dead body. He was moved, thinking that apparently the mysterious things had not ended. They just wanted to play hide and seek with him. Now he was sure he could see his wife again. On his phone, he was receiving a lot of messages from the boss telling him to go to work. He laughed because that guy was dead. It was ironic that even dead, the boss kept ordering him to work. Suddenly, a bloody message appeared on the phone, saying that just because he didn't speak, it didn't mean he didn't know. An energy came out of the phone and created an eye that said he saw it, and he ordered him to follow him now. Feng Xiu calmly grabbed the eye and told him to stop holding the phone because he only had one. With that, the illusion dissipated, but he was curious to see what the next mystery would be. Now in front of the academy, which was completely destroyed, he smelled everything burned and thought it looked very realistic. Suddenly he saw Fei Fei standing there, all excited. He came to talk to him, saying that he had arrived early today. He touched his shoulders and asked him if it was real. She said she was becoming very bold. But suddenly he pulled her, saying that he knew very well how things had happened. He was going up the stairs when Ao appeared and asked him if they had forced him to work. He said he really liked it a lot and asked where the AI boss was. Ao pointed out and said that the guy was in the back of the room. Strangely, the company was as busy as ever. And Feng Xiu began to wonder if what he saw was a lie and this was really the reality. When he found the boss, they scolded him, asking him why he had not responded to the message in the group. Feng Xiu ignored this and asked when he would receive his commissions. Dai said he was embarrassed to arrive late and talk about commissions, while Feng Xiu complained, saying that even dead, Dai was disgusting. The boss pointed with his finger, asking him what he was talking about dying, and he told him to speak correctly because he was very alive. But suddenly, Feng Xiu finished him with the ghost doctor's weapon. The boss moaned and fell to the ground. Feng Xiu smiled, saying that apparently, he was no longer alive. Everyone at work get up and look at him. Feng Xiu approaches Ao, gives him a little pat on the shoulder and asks what happened. Suddenly, Ao's body inflates and transforms. Feng Xiu realizes that everyone's bodies are cursed and begins to finish them. When he finishes, he asks who did this and if he has had enough fun. But he realizes that everything is a dream. On the ground, people twist, begging for a like in this video to help Mazuro to create more juicy content for his viewers. Activate the little bell cross and I say goodbye. And do you remember that the last chapter ended when Feng Xiu returned to the company? After he finished with everyone, a kind of illusion broke and the employees were all lying on the ground, unconscious. Looking at a dark path, he wondered if he was dreaming, or if maybe that was the power of the entity that is against him. Suddenly, an eyeball in flames, carrying a lot of skulls, asks him how he can see through dreams. Feng Xiu says it's ridiculous how he understands so much about dreams, but he doesn't understand anything about silicone. That was too soft. The creature, confused, asks why he doesn't seem to be afraid. Feng Xiu only replies that, apparently, the creature depends on fear to kill him, and in that case, he apologizes, saying that all she has achieved is to ignite his desire to stay alive and break that illusion. He walks to a door while the eye watches him, and with that, the creature moves away saying that he will remind the human that he is not afraid of anything. Feng Xiu begins to wonder if it was that eye that was terrifying the doctor. Observing the amount of illusions around him, he knows that he is still in the dream and is being manipulated. If that is the case, he will have to start over and apologize to Zhao Ao. With that, Feng Xiu restarts the day once more. Now knowing that the power of the creature in that place is to manipulate dreams, all he has to do is not sleep. They manage to get out once more, but Feng Xiu realized that everything was too normal. Knowing that that would only happen in dreams, it ends again. With that, he knows that he is trapped in the dream of another person and believes that he will have to help Zhao Ao overcome his own fears. Then he explains to everyone that the safe passage is actually a lie, and that what happens there is that they dominate you with the false dream. Zhao Ao approaches and warns him that he cannot fall into that illusion, that if he survives his fears, he will be able to come out alive. And the secret to always confirm if you are in a dream is to caress Fei Fei because the feeling is different. Zhao Ao says he doesn't know how that should be since he doesn't know the real feeling. And unfortunately, after multiple attempts, people were still trapped in dreams. He knew that all that was made up by the strange creature, the problem is that each one had different illusions. And the biggest problem of all is that only the person can break the dream in which he is trapped. He tells Zhao Ao to wake up, but the boy is murmuring. He slaps him on the face and one more sequence, a kick in the middle of the legs. But even agonizing, the boy does not wake up. Zhang Xiu is confused because nothing works. He already pulls out the scalpel and says that he will have to solve it like this. Without compassion for his friend, he hits him on the thigh. Zhao Ao agonizes, asking him to stop, but faints to one side. Our protagonist has no idea how he is going to save this boy. He realizes that he will have to start all over again. However, if that does not work, he may have to give up. When they wake up, Zhao Ao comments that he was dreaming of a very friendly ghost. It was very soft, but when he was about to hug her, he unfortunately woke up. Zhang Xiu ignores him and the boy next to him talks about the safe exit. Suddenly, Zhao Ao screams excitedly saying that when he leaves, he will look for a woman to flirt. Seeing how determined Zhao Ao is to get a woman, Zhang Xiu decides to use that feeling. Since you cannot conquer fear, you will have to use another emotion. Then he tells Zhao Ao to turn on the phone and leave the volume to the maximum, which confuses the boy. But our protagonist says that they are going to use his favorite movie. We see a girl in a classroom and she says that the private lessons of the pretty teacher are about to begin. Zhao Ao is already excited, and the teacher explains that he has made many mistakes in the questions, so he will have to be punished. Zhao Ao knows that this is his favorite movie, and tells Zhang Xiu that they can see it when they leave. However, our boy looks at him saying that it is the only way to save the boy's life. Zhao Ao, embarrassed, says that it is fine, and with that, takes the cell phone and plays the video. A little mouth sends him a kiss, and the teacher appears saying that he will have to be hit a little. Zhang Xiu tells him to pay attention to the story and let things flow naturally as in the movie. Zhao Ao, completely recovered, says he understood very well, while the couple behind is wondering if they should also participate in that. The teacher begins to hit the boy and everyone is watching that. While they watch together, there are hearts everywhere. Zhao Ao's head is about to explode when he imagines answering everything the teacher asks. Seeing that the boy's feelings are at their peak, Zhang Xiu says it's time to go, warning his friend that if something terrifying appears, he must try to find the difference between reality and dream. And strangely, Zhang Xiu is a little bored, thinking that after living this day so many times, he even misses going home with his wife. Sometime later, the couple died and did not survive the illusions they had to face. He just wants to know if Zhao Ao is okay, who next to him is saying that he just wants to try a little. The boy is shaking his head with his tongue out, and Zhang Xiu thinks it's crazy that his friend has survived thanks to the teacher. It is then that he notices something strange. The boy seems to be emanating a kind of spiritual aura. He understands that his friend is about to awaken his powers. Sometime later, Zhao Ao is lying on the floor drooling. He suddenly wakes up and gets up saying to Fei Fei not to run. Then he realizes that he is in the wrong place and asks Zhang Xiu if that is the exit and if he was successful. Zhang Xiu only watches and approaches, and strangely, Zhao Ao tells him to come closer to give him a push. Our boy tells him to wake up to reality, and says it's amazing that his friend has overcome the illusion using that kind of thing. Embarrassed, Zhao Ao runs out to look for his cell phone that is with the couple. However, when he falls, he sees that the two have already left. He retreats scared, wondering if they really died. And Zhang Xiu says that unfortunately yes, but now, with his hand on a steel door, he wonders if that is the end of everything. He pushes it and a golden light comes out. Both are blind, and in the next second, they are outside. Zhao Ao celebrates saying that they finally managed to get out. Looking up, Zhang Xiu sees a lot of creatures and agrees that they really came out of that illusion. Then he turns to Zhao Ao and asks if he has awakened his spiritual side. The boy seems confused and says that he only had a strange feeling, as if all his senses had improved. Gang Xiu understands that he has awakened and asks him what skill he has received. The poor man, crying, says that he cannot feel any skill and wonders if it is a failure even in that. With that, he asks Zhang Xiu what his power is. Our boy says he has precognition. The friend is scared, saying that now he explains how he could know the way of everything. Gang Xiu thinks that for now it is better that people believe that that is his power. That will attract the attention of powerful people and he will be able to evolve to the maximum. Once he gets stronger, he will be able to take revenge on everyone, especially on the evil wife. The question that remains in his mind is if the hospital illusion exists within that office. Why can't he see that anymore? He can't understand if there is any relationship between reality and the strange world. What he knows is that, luckily, everything he found this time was a creature that could only make dreams. If it had been something that corrupted his mind, maybe he would have been trapped forever. After all, if Zhao Ao had to face some absolute power, even dying 10,000 times, it would be impossible to break the illusion. The only thing he finds strange is that Zhao Ao does not seem to be seeing any of the terrifying things. He comments on this and his friend looks up wondering what he is talking about. A bird passes by and Fang Xiu says he must have seen it wrong. However, right on his friend's back, there is a creature about to hug him. And Fang Xiu wonders if he is really the only one who can see this kind of monsters. What he wants is to find someone who also comes to better understand this. Zhao Ao is disappointed that his friend sees the future, but he doesn't even know what he can do. With that, he tells Fang Xiu that it is better for them to get out of there quickly. So they start to leave, and our boy asks him how he broke the dream. He says he followed the instructions exactly as his friend told him. He immersed himself in the dream and ventured to feel everything. The protagonist knows that when everyone died the last time, the creature appeared for him. However, now that Zhao Ao survived, even with everyone dead, the creature did not appear. That means there is something that maybe not even he knows. With that, he asks his friend why he was caressing and kissing the air. Embarrassed, he asks if he was really moving like that in real life. Fang Xiu says yes, that he was making some gestures and even some strange noises. Zhao Ao begs him to stay quiet, but Fang Xiu says he was joking. The strange thing is that not even Fang Xiu himself realized that he no longer has almost any facial expression. Zhao Ao begs him not to tell that to anyone, and our boy just sits. Then he says he is going to explain that it was nothing important. All he did was close his eyes and imagine the teachers giving several lessons. One of them told him that he had to keep him company and die. Suddenly, he began to feel an extremely cold hand. From one moment to another, many other hands appeared, and he remembered that Fang Xiu had told him to stay focused. With that, he tried to protect himself to escape the hands. That was his plan to divert the attention of those sensations. As much as the hands were irritating him, he remained focused. Fang Xiu was wondering, what kind of story is this? The room was terrifying. Suddenly it became romantic again. The hand approached once again and landed on his. It was a girl who called him a classmate and asked him why he was not paying attention. As soon as he opened his eyes, he was scared because she was face to face with him. The girl was not Ash, but she was holding a pokeball. He felt uncomfortable and told her to move away. However, she shook a weapon and bent. With that, he ran and grabbed her. He was all excited, saying that now he was going to discover the truth, until a giant tooth appeared in front of him. The creature transformed and asked him if he was scared. His arms were immobilized and he was about to be devoured. He told Fang Xiu that he was scared to death at that moment and thought he was going to die. However, he released his arms and once again he went on the adventure. If he was going to die, he was not going to let it go in vain. With that, the monster was scared that he was not afraid at all. Fang Xiu begins to wonder if the creature did not appear out of fear of being abused by this madman. Then his friend asks why he wanted to know those things, and our boy just tells him to let it go. In that, Fang Xiu says that he is going to take a taxi home and only sends a message if he needs something. Zhao Ao comments that all the companions died. So how is he going to go home doing nothing? Our boy just looks back and asks him if he is willing to call the security guards. He feels a little uncomfortable and realizes that it is not the best option. With that, Fang Xiu withdraws, warning that soon the spiritual organizations will look for him. Sometime later, his wife says that it is very good that he has returned home and asks him if he has already eaten. Our boy smiles, saying that now he has found her. She makes a macabre face and he says he has returned. With that, she is about to say that he can see her when suddenly a cut appears. Fang Xiu did not hesitate for a second and says that he missed that wife. Smiling, he asks if she also wanted to see him that much. But strangely, everything is restarted and he is in front of his house again. He has no idea how he died. Apparently, his wife's power is much greater than he expected. Hesitant, he puts his hand on the doorknob and enters the house. Once again, she says that she missed him and asks if he wants something to eat. Once again, Fang Xiu only ignores him since he realized that the difference in power between the two is still incomprehensible. Meanwhile, in a building, an emergency meeting is being held. Director Wang Dai says that everyone must have already heard the news. 5 hours ago, a mysterious phenomenon occurred at the school academy, but no one knows about this yet. The secretary shows recordings close to the region. Unfortunately, all they managed to discover was about these two survivors, a boy named Fang Xiu and another named Zhao Ao. Looking at the boy's history, both seem to be ordinary people, and with that, he asks the staff who think about this. A guy with glasses says that if two normal guys survived, it must be a rank D place. However, someone says that he doubts it a lot. A blonde girl says that in the recording, the boy named Fang Xiu seemed too calm. Her assistant comments that there is a possibility that he has become a spiritual master in there. However, the guy with glasses insists that, even if they woke up, it must be an extremely easy place since they came out alive. The director orders everyone to shut up and warns that the investigation team must contact those people and find out if they managed to awaken their powers. Ling Zhu says she understood the orders very well. Meanwhile, Fang Xiu wakes up in her room. As always, his wife is there telling him not to worry about her and go back to sleep. However, Fang Xiu is in a conversation with Zhao Ao, who says he discovered what his ability is. He explains that the reason why it didn't work yesterday is because it seems that it only works after 11 in the morning and lasts until 1 in the morning. Fang Xiu tells him to say it at once. Zhao Ao says that his friend's ability is good, but that his is much better now. Our boy is already losing his patience and tells him to say at once what misfortune of power he received. Zhao Ao explains that his power makes him look incredibly good after 11 in the morning and that his muscles burn. Fang Xiu thinks this guy is making fun of him and says he's going to hang him. When he goes to the bathroom and opens the tap, his wife comments that he has incredible pressure. Our boy is confused with this wretch who doesn't leave him alone. Already in the kitchen, Zhao Ao continues to speak that he has no idea how much stronger he has become. Thinking about that, Fang Xiu only holds the cell phone to one side. As I imagined, the skills are a reflection of the person's greatest desire. Apparently, Zhao Ao always dreamed of being strong and that's why he received something like that. He sits down to have breakfast and his wife says it's the perfect time for that. In another part of the city, someone gets out of a car. It is Ling Zhu, asking what they have discovered when observing the messages of the boys. The guy says that, apparently, one of them really became a spiritual master. She asks about powers and the guy keeps silent, saying that he has no idea about Fang Xiu's power, but that the boy Zhao Ao, apparently, becomes very attractive from 11 to 1 in the morning, mainly in physical ability and extracurricular skills. Ling Zhu says that the boy has the perfect ability to work as a stripper, but as he goes up the stairs, he says they need to know Fang Xiu's ability, especially because depending on his powers, it could be a risk to society. Denji just sits down saying he understood. Already at home, the wife asks if he can see her. Our boy ignores her as always, watching television, until he hears something coming from the door. He gets up to see what it is, while his wife tells him to look at her. He goes to the crib and wonders if what is on the other side is human or strange, and he meets face to face with Ling Zhu's heavy armament. The guys knock on the door and he hears the sound, which means they are human. With that, he opens the door and asks what they want. Ling Zhu begins to introduce herself, and at that moment, our boy already pulls out the card. He says they arrived faster than he thought, and his wife clasps her arm, telling the friends to come in. That calls the attention of the two. Ling Zhu asks if he knew they were coming. In the room, Fang Xiu notices that everyone is ignoring his wife. He wonders if they also know the danger and are pretending like him or if there is any other reason. Looking at the card, he calls Denji by her name. The boy introduces himself and says he is a researcher, and the girl next to him is Enzu, and he is his assistant. Fang Xiu looks at her, and she looks back at him asking how she already knew about the research office. Our boy simply replies that, in a world as paranormal as this, it was obvious that there would be some association maintaining order. Ling Zhu replies that it is extraordinary that he remains so calm with so many strange events. Then he explains that they are a department that deals with the mysterious and peculiar. They are there first to find out what happened at the academy, and second to see if he has the potential to join the team. Our boy does not show any reaction, while the wife is in his face. Ling Zhu says that there are independent workers who also collaborate with them. However, those who are directly related to the office receive many more resources to strengthen themselves. The wife continues to insist, saying that it is good that she is not looking at that blonde and asks if he still loves her. Fang Xiu only looks at his wife's face, thinking how wonderful it would be if she had a desperate expression, then it would be lovely. The blonde continues to say that, first of all, she will have to explain very well what happened at that academy. Fang Xiu gets up and says that before answering that, there are things he wants to know. The blonde gets angry and says that she is not in a position to make demands. The assistant tells her to calm down because it is not good to solve things that way. Then the protagonist says that Ling Zhu seems to have spiritual powers. However, his assistant is a completely normal person. He asks if this is how investigations work, or if she is so corrupted by her powers that she needs someone to supervise her. The girl begins to sweat an aura again, and Benji tells her to calm down. However, she only asks if she is looking for problems. The assistant asks them to stop provoking her because if she loses her calm, everyone there will die. Fang Xiu simply ignores him and says that first they will have to explain what power and this mysterious world really are. The woman says that all those who survive the mysterious ask that question. What is the reason for this? Where does it come from and what is its purpose? Currently, all the office knows is that they are all corrupted entities and sources of human contamination. Each creature has its own way of existing. Some are made of flesh and blood, while others are purely spiritual. They do not follow any pattern and appear out of nowhere. In addition, they all seem to hate humanity and have a tendency to consume people. Or rather, they feed on the spirit that exists in humans. The assistant explains that this is what they know so far. Fang Xiu asks how the levels of the teachers are categorized. The boy says that he is impressed that he even knows about that and explains that the current level is measured by how much they can use of their essence. While the boy writes about it, the wife licks her lips, saying that there seem to be many good things to eat. Then he explains that the classifications are made according to the percentage of spiritual power that a person has, and for each increase of 20%, it goes up in rank. Feng Xiu then asks what happens when 100% is reached. The secretary explains that, in reality, no one has reached 100% in history. This is because, the more you want to increase, the more you must defy terrifying things. The result is that all those who seek to reach 100% die in the process. Then he says that he will do the third question. Ling Xiu loses his patience and says that he must feel very sure of himself to ask so many questions. He throws the notebook at the assistant and tells him to go to the website if he wants to find out something. The only advice he gets is not to believe the emails he receives from other people. That said, now he must give all the information about what happened at the academy. Feng Xiu ignores her and says that he has one more question. Were you looking at your wife behind him? At that moment she gets excited. This guy is crazy. What is he doing? Ling Xiu seems confused, and the reality of the protagonist begins to distort. The assistant says that they verified the information and found nothing about a wife or girlfriend. Meanwhile, the wife jumps out of happiness, saying that she knew she was always seeing her. He approaches her face, saying that he should have told the truth from the beginning. The investigators seem to notice something strange, and the boy whispers that it is normal for people to have hallucinations once they discover their powers. Imagine that Feng Xiu's mental state is worse than they thought. She gets angry and asks if he is trying to make fun of them again. Our protagonist is sure that she is not faking. Then he looks to one side and calls his beloved wife, saying that now he can clearly see how wonderful she is. Feng Xiu says that he apparently does not want to cooperate, but he feels something strange. Something begins to distort, and the wife says that she is finally seeing her. She turns her head back and calls the humans. Ling Xiu and the assistant wonder what that is. The creature begins to grow and shows a macabre smile, saying that it has been a long time since the last time he tested a spiritual master. The assistant is shocked, and Feng Xiu asks what kind of power that is. Our boy says it's a little surprise for them. His wife is more mysterious than he imagined, and is apparently trapped in a puzzle. He asks if they can now see her, realizing that the fact of noticing her existence brought her to reality. If not even a spiritual master could see her, it means that he must be the only one who can see all the creatures. Ling Xiu extends her hand and creates a purple energy, throwing it at the monster and telling him to die. Feng Xiu is impressed with the spiritual power of the woman. Apparently, that must be the skill of a spiritual master. However, from the smoke, the wife emerges unharmed. The woman cannot believe it and loses her calm, trying to flee immediately, saying that it is impossible for them to handle that. The wife simply extends her finger and cuts the air. With that, Ling Xiu disconnects and falls to the ground. Our boy is worse than his friend and opens his clothes. Seeing that he has a fox tattoo on his inner thighs, he also observes the assistant and finds a pink letter. He begins to read it while the wife asks why he is not looking at her. He tries to discover as much as possible, and in the next second, he is murdered. He returns to the moment when he had just returned from school. He knows that he cannot do anything against his wife. However, tomorrow the research team will come, and that will be the moment when the world will discover the person who can see the future. He goes to the computer to access the forum that he discovered talking to the assistant. A message appears on the screen, and when he clicks on it, a monster appears, scaring him. However, he ignores it and continues to navigate the site. He is trying to find the truth about this bizarre world. Strangely, the wife moves the mouse. As he was investigating very quickly, she asks him to be more delicate. Feng Xiu ignores all this and continues to investigate. He enters a link that requires him to pay $1 million. The wife asks if he wants help while he wonders how he will get that amount. Look at the main post that talks about someone who can manipulate time. If this existed, his value as someone who sees the future would decrease. The person says that the skill is called time loss, and congratulates the protagonist for having lost his time reading it. Our boy wonders what kind of forum this is. Meanwhile, at a university, a girl with a pink shirt frowns in front of her computer and wonders who is talking about her. Feng Xiu is trying to find classified information that only that researcher would have access to. The next day, he wakes up after spending the whole night investigating more information about strange events. Every time an event occurs, it is classified from rank S to rank B. A plague of rank A could evaporate an entire city in one day, and a rank S event could destroy a nation. The problem is that the reason for these things and why they appear is still a mystery to everyone. However, these creatures are always around everyone, but each one has its own condition to materialize in reality. As always, the wife says good morning to him while he thinks he didn't find anyone talking about seeing creatures in the sky. The goal now is to get money to extract as much knowledge as possible from these forums. Something he also discovered is about peculiar tools that have unimaginable functions, and the reason why the scalpel is so strong is because it has been used for many sinister things. He remembers that one of the articles spoke about connecting with the spiritual energy of a weapon. A blue aura begins to emerge and surround the room. Looking at the clock, he knows that there are 3 hours left before the research team arrives. The energy enters his body and he is being attacked by a lot of creatures. His heart is crushed, but Feng Xiu only asks if that is all the despair they can cause. If that is the case, all this hatred will become the new tool. Then he orders the spiritual energy of that weapon to kneel before the new king. He feels that he has gained at least another 2% of power, realizing that these objects are not only tools, but also serve to help him evolve. The problem is that his physical body cannot yet absorb much, so he will have to wait a bit. He goes to breakfast and his friend calls. He answers, saying that he knows that his friend received a power for extracurricular activities. Zhao Ao is surprised and asks if he used precognition to know, saying that it is good that he knows that, Although his power has been discovered, it is still much more incredible than seeing the future. Someone's headphones fall to the ground. It is the investigator in the car, and Lin Zhu asks what the problem is. He says he discovered the skills of the two boys. She tells him to say it quickly because he seems very excited. He says that Zhao Ao's ability is quite peculiar. She asks if it is so shocking, and he replies that Feng Xiu's is much more impressive. The boy can apparently see the future, warning that, in the conversation, he already knows that they are both going to visit him. Feng Xiu wonders how they already know they are coming. She is confused, thinking that, even if something like this existed, she should not be with a novice spiritualist. The assistant reminds her that the better the skill, the higher the cost of using it. She asks if she is setting an example for the guy who could teleport, but only 10 centimeters at a time. In that case, it is better to just walk. The assistant says that, in any case, she has no idea how the boy knows they are coming. She opens the door, saying that enough speculation, it's time to meet him in person. Face to face with him, he will judge if he really sees the future or if he is just making up stories. When they arrive in front of the room, the door is already open. They doubt for a second and she bursts. Something catches their attention. Feng Xiu is quietly serving you for the three of you. Without looking to one side, he says his names and tells them how they feel. Immediately, they both enter the house. They sit on the sofa, asking how he knows their names and also how he knew they were coming. Feng Xiu responds immediately that it is because he can see the future with his eyes. She crosses her arms and tells him to try it if it is true. Feng Xiu begins to talk about everything they came to do, from trying to find out what happened at the academy to also knowing the powers of Zhao Ao. The investigator says that all this can be discovered through logical deduction. Feng Xiu laughs and the guy asks if he said something wrong. Our boy ignores him and questions if anyone else knows, besides him, that the investigator is in love with Ling Shui, and that, at this moment, he has a love letter in his left pocket. He puts his hand in his pocket and trembles while the women look at him confused. Feng Xiu says he will quote the letter, warning that he says, Ling Shui, when you read this, I will probably be dead. However, there is something that I have always wanted to tell you. The blonde interrupts the sentence and goes directly to the pocket to look for it. He takes out the letter and checks it, getting scared because it says exactly what Feng Xiu mentioned. After thinking about it a bit, he says that this is not enough because the letter was written in the past, not in the future. Then he says that she can control flames and that her measurements are 85, 63 and 80. The wife, who had transformed into a cup, asks what her measurements are. Ling Shui feels a little embarrassed and says that her power is not a secret in the spiritual community and that he could be just a prodigy in analyzing measurements. Our boy then says that he knows a secret and asks if he really wants him to reveal it. She smiles, saying that she is not afraid of anything that he can expose. Our boy then says that he knows very well that he has a certain obsession with pink. Everything good he has is covered in that color. In addition, he also has a pink fox in a very interesting place. She immediately exudes an aura, saying that, apparently, her power is similar to that of her friend. Both are indecent. Feng Xiu invents a story, saying that he does not know how everything happens. Last night he used his powers and saw the assistant writing the letter, and that same night, he also saw her enter the closet to get dressed. She sits, embarrassed, thinking that she secretly saw more than that, since that tattoo is very close. Then he says that he will believe him if he can predict the numbers of the lottery, and immediately writes them. When he gives her the ticket, she knows that this will be the perfect way to discover the truth. However, he asks why he does not use that ticket to become a millionaire. He says it is because of the butterfly effect and how everything would get out of control. He makes a bet, saying that if the lottery number is not correct, they can kill him. Ling Shui is losing his mind with all the arrogance of the boy. With that, the investigator asks him to comment on what happened at the academy. He remains silent and says that it was the Blue Mental Hospital. He had gone to the office of the company when, suddenly, the whole place was enveloped by this illusion. Everyone in the office ended up being dragged to this supposed hospital. Obviously, Feng Xiu is going to lie. He does not mention many details, not even the scalpel. He only says that at certain times he saw the path where Lai Zhao would survive, and where they would die. With that, he managed to escape dozens of anomalies. The investigator is surprised, and Ling Shui says that he has never heard of a place with dozens of anomalies. Although strange events occur due to a dissonance, they never managed to act together. If he saw countless creatures, he probably only found one that manipulated them all. Feng Xiu says that, apparently, she does not have the experience to understand what he is talking about, but he adds that it is fine. Sometimes, ignorance helps survival. The poor woman, once again, is losing her patience with the boy's insults. However, the investigator tells him to calm down, explaining that it would be good if he returned with them today. Feng Xiu gets up and tells them to go fast. An hour later, the car stops, they get out, and the assistant at the door says that this is the investigation office. Feng Xiu says that this proves that almost no one can see the creatures, since the road in front of him is completely dark. Remember how the last chapter ended just when Feng Xiu was looking into the dark, as he was the only one who could see that darkness. He was probably also the only one who could see the monsters. Now, he was anxious that this investigation office would not disappoint him. The trio climbed the stairs and entered a room. He thought that the building at the entrance was probably just a distraction, since the real base was in the lower floors. A man spoke on the phone, asking who he was, saying that he was not interested in buying or renting houses or anything like that. At that moment, someone called Fang while the man was moving away. There, they saw a common office like any other. A man stood up and accidentally hit a girl. This caused a discussion, with her asking where he thought he was playing and him insisting that it was an accident. Ignoring all that, they entered a room, where Feng Xiu sat down and said that this place really felt animated. Ling Zhu only told him to stay still and asked Benji to accompany her because they needed to talk to the director. With that, The two closed the door, leaving him alone. He closed his eyes and a strange aura approached his body. Thanks to the supernatural powers and the energy that he had absorbed from that scalpel, his perception had improved. However, even with sharper senses, he could not detect anything unusual, which showed that this place was extraordinary. He began to follow Ling Zhu's steps to find out where the director's office was. Suddenly, the blonde turned around, jumped over. Benji asked what was going on and if he was feeling something strange. Our boy, drinking his coffee, realized that she was much more perceptive than he had expected. In the office, the director asked if he was sure of this about seeing the future and who else knew. Fang Xiu confirmed it, saying that the only other person who knew was his friend Zhao Ao. The director placed his cup on the table and said that such a skill was extremely dangerous, so information should not be leaked. This guy looked like the guy who gave Peter Parker jobs. He asked for the lottery numbers and Benji gave them to him. This is how our boy proved that he could see the future, but the man did not seem convinced, saying that someone else could have told him. He ordered him to monitor today's lottery draw to make sure it was 100% random and not influenced. He hit the table with his hand and scratched his chin, saying he wanted to see if Fang Xiu was really capable. Then he turned to Ling Zhu, saying she was an experienced teacher. That's why he wanted to know if he thought the boy was lying. The competent detective said that if he was lying, he was an excellent liar. In addition, predicting the future is easy to expose, so it would make no sense to try to deceive someone with that. However, he settled his hair and said that, personally, he was sure it was a lie. This was based on his intuition as a woman. The director washed his hands and said that, true or not, they would soon discover it. But what intrigued him was the boy's affirmation about the existence of numerous spirits in the psychiatric hospital. Ling Zhu said he thought that was impossible because, if there really were so many spirits there, he would not have come out alive. As far as she knew, there were two entities in that place. One was the supernatural doctor, who killed a person, consumed her, and only then moved again. The other was a creature capable of controlling dreams, known as the Nightmare. The Bailu Academy was a fixed supernatural domain, and considering these two monsters, it was, at best, a region of C rank. The director asked how terrifying the dreams of that creature were. Ling Zhu replied that they only scared ordinary people. Even the boy Cao Ao survived watching some adult videos, so obviously the spiritual masters would not be affected. When you understand the ability of the creature, surviving becomes easy, unlike with the supernatural doctor. The director said that the explanations were enough and that it was time to meet the boy. However, Ling Zhu said it was too risky since they still did not know him well and the boy could get out of control. He was about to suggest calling the captain and the commissioner, but he informed him that they were not available. Apparently, both had gone out to hunt the leader of a supernatural group. Then we saw a man climbing stairs when another ran after him. These were the two men from the investigation team, Commissioner Bai Kai, the one with black hair, and Captain Yan Min, obviously the other. They were competing to see who arrived first. Ling Zhu said he was fine, but that first he would give him a mental contamination test to avoid any risk. The scene changed to another room with a device on the table. She explained that it was a lie detector based on spiritual fluctuations. If her heart and her words did not coincide, it would show a reaction. He placed his hand on the device and told her to continue with the questions. She asked him to imagine a supernatural creature massacring the entire city. He had to choose between fighting the creature and escaping alone or saving as many people as possible who could run away with him. He had to answer sincerely. He said he would choose the first option and fight the supernatural entity. The test showed that he was not lying, and she wondered if he really was the type who would take risks for others. Obviously, our boy said that because if he died the first time, he would try again and again. One day, he would find the weakness and the creature would die. Then she asked him to imagine a future in which he would receive an invitation from a highly intelligent supernatural creature, much stronger than any human that has ever existed. If he accepted the invitation, he would obtain unimaginable power and authority. Fang Xiu immediately replied that no. She was surprised and then asked what he would do if the creature offered protection to everyone he loved, including his family and friends. Once again, he said no. Then she asked him what he would do if his family joined the creatures, but he explained that he had no family. She asked him what he thought about friends, since, as far as he knew, he was a colleague of Zhao Ao. Fang Xiu said that if his supposed friend accepted the invitation of the monsters, then he would no longer have a friend. Then she said it was time for the third question. It seemed that they asked him many questions and he remained calm all the time. Finally, she announced that it was time for the last question and asked him what he most wanted to do after becoming a spiritual master. He simply replied that he wanted to kill all the supernatural creatures of this world. Once again, she was surprised and lowered her head. He commented that spiritual masters always had the darkest sides of humanity. On countless occasions in which he had asked these questions, they always talked about killing creatures and obtaining the most money, fame and women possible. When he saw our boy with such noble ideals, he was even moved to tears, wondering when someone so disinterested in humanity had appeared among the masters. If the system had not failed, he was a kind of angel among all of them. Although he seemed arrogant and indifferent, deep down he was really worried about humans. While she checked if the device was broken, he only thought about the day the woman would come 100 more times. He wanted to kill all the supernatural creatures, but he knew that she would not fall so easily. The scene changed to a door opening while she was carrying it to Director Wan. He gave her the document indicating that the boy had passed the test. The man introduced himself as Wan Dai, the current director of the research group. He was about to ask the boy to sit down, but Fan Xiu had already done so before they told him. Fan Xiu gave a casual greeting, which bothered Lin Zhu due to his lack of manners. Ignoring this, Dai decided to look at the test results and was immediately impressed. The answers were perfect and he turned to her, asking if they were really true. She simply agreed, making it clear. He commented that, based on the boy's answers, he was perfect for this profession. Even if he did not have the ability to see the future, he still wanted it in the research group. He raised his hand, telling him that he was in no hurry while waiting for the lottery results. Meanwhile, Fan Xiu thought he was only there to use this identity as someone who could see the future and gather resources for his goal. Dai then asked about the limitations of his ability to see the future, such as the reuse time or the limits of use. Fan Xiu explained that, in the supernatural world, he could walk between the future and the past. He could witness the lives and deaths of countless people and experience infinite possibilities. Lin Zhu, whom I confused with Fan Xiu from the other story, was irritated because he always gave those great answers, acting as if he were full of himself. At that moment, the boss was talking about how the commissioner and the captain were the strongest when someone broke into the room, announcing that something terrible had happened. Apparently, the investigation commissioner had died. The two stood up in shock, while Fan wondered how strong a third-level person would be. It was a shame that the man died before becoming useful to him. Someone commented that Bai Kai was the #1 spiritual master of this city. If someone like the Reglement had died, everything would fall into complete chaos. However, it seemed that the man had not yet died completely. He was currently fighting against the headless supernatural creature, but he had not informed Captain Yan. Normally, if the two worked together, this would not be a problem. But as he advanced, another mysterious entity stalked nearby. In fact, Reglement died because he attacked alone and was taken by surprise by the other entity, with blood splattering everywhere. The director hit the table, demanding to know what the investigation group was doing not to realize the presence of this other monster. Someone explained that they had investigated everything, but this creature appeared out of nowhere, as if it had materialized in the air. The boss sat down and asked where Yan Min was, to which the man replied that he was heading to the city of Inbei. Then he covered his face and ordered to take Fang Xiu to the rest area, while telling Zhang Lingsu to accompany him to the conference room. Fang Xiu stood up, indicating a gesture to the man to guide him, who hesitated before obeying. As they walked down the hall, he heard some people talk about investigations in the city of Inbei and something urgent. They mentioned 3-point spiritual coins and even a spiritual incense. He had heard of the incense that was produced there, but had never seen it in person. Spiritual coins were a type of metal capable of conducting spiritual energy and were used to forge weapons. Meanwhile, the spiritual incense could suppress mental corruption. These were prestigious resources that allowed spiritual masters to control their mental states. God, how many times have I said spirit and spiritual? Sitting in the room, Fang Zi wondered as a master how he had died so easily, not to mention that he was attacked only by 2 creatures. Then he remembered that the skin of the ghost doctor was as hard as steel, and that normal weapons could not penetrate it. When observing the others arguing, he thought that, in contrast, human skin was incredibly easy to cut. Even with spiritual powers, they were always at a disadvantage against those supernatural creatures. Then he stood up and told the man not to panic. When the man turned to respond, he was hit on the neck. Fang said that those who were in danger in this place were the spiritual masters, not him. Shortly after, the boy was already dressed in a very elegant suit and looked very elegant. He commented that it was time to take advantage of this chaos to gather information. In the office, everyone wondered how someone as strong as Bai Kai could have died. Fang walked around the place and heard others mention that Bai Kai seemed dissatisfied with the captain's selection. Someone replied that it was inevitable, since the current captain, Yang, had a very powerful luck ability. A girl added that Bai was considered invincible, while Fang thought that having luck as an ability was quite unique and interesting. The girl with blue hair said that on the day of the competition for the captain's position, Bai Kai had a stomachache. Her friend asked why she didn't ask for a break, and she replied that someone as proud as Bai Kai would never do that. As a result, he was forced to fight diarrhea. Fang left, thinking that all the news here stank, literally, and that none were useful. At that moment, someone opened the door, announcing that everyone should meet in the conference room because Yang had arrived. Fang knew that this was the perfect time to get important information. In a large meeting room, the entire office gathered around a huge table. Standing discreetly in a corner, our boy wondered who was brave enough to smoke in a place like that. He looked to one side and saw a man in the corner who seemed to be crying. He assumed that this was Captain Yang, moved by Bai's death. Then the captain spoke from there, asking everyone to look at the screen, where the new entity capable of hiding in the shadows appeared. Bai Kai had not been able to detect his presence during the fight. It didn't matter how fast he was, he couldn't escape his own shadow. As a result, he was seriously injured and was finished off by the headless creature. Yang had already killed that same creature, but the entity of the shadows managed to escape. The purpose of the meeting was not only to address this incident, but also to avenge Bai Kai's death. At least, in the midst of all this chaos, there was good news. Yang had advanced to the 3rd rank and was now one of the strongest spiritual masters. Fang knew that this meant that the man had awakened 41% of his spiritual potential. He wondered what effect this would have on the men's luck ability. Yang got up from his seat, took his pack of cigarettes and saw that it was empty. He crushed the package and turned around, asking if anyone else had any. The director reminded him that the city's security was now in his hands. Yang simply put his hands in his pockets and said that, if that were the case, he would go buy a package himself. The director held his anger, but hit the table, telling him to stay, asking him if he did not want to avenge Bai Kai. Yang stopped for a moment and asked why he should seek revenge. Would revenge bring him back to life? The director covered his face and told him not to leave, handing him another pack of cigarettes. Yang sat down again, saying that he should have given it to him before and commenting that that brand was quite good. Meanwhile, Fang watched, noticing how calm and rational the man seemed, except for the fact that he had smoked about 30 cigarettes in 10 minutes. Then someone opened the door and called the director. The man was going to complain until the other explained that the person he was supposed to watch hit him on the head and stole his uniform. The director informed everyone that the culprit was a boy named Fang Xiu and placed an alert on him. Everyone started running, while our boy was disappointed that the man had left so quickly. Suddenly someone called him. It was Ling Zhu, who said that the bastard was right there. Immediately, everyone pointed their weapons at the boy. One of them even told Captain Young to stay away. The director asked if Fang did not realize that it was a crime to attack someone from his organization and demanded to know what he was planning. Fang completely ignored him, crouched in front of Yang and asked him if he would like to bring Bai Kai back. Yang got serious and warned him not to joke about it or he would end up dead. Our boy felt the pressure of spiritual energy, but he was used to much worse things. Then he told Yang to answer at once. Did he want to save Bai Kai or not? Meanwhile, everyone in the room kept pointing their weapons at him. Yang told him to stop talking nonsense and ordered the others to arrest him immediately. But suddenly, Yang told everyone to stop. Maybe he was losing his mind, but he felt that what the boy was saying was true. He asked if Fang could really bring Bai Kai back. Fang Xiu asked when Bai Kai died and how far Yang was from him at that time. Yang explained that he followed a track in the mountainous region, but he arrived too late to return to the city. If he had been close at that time, maybe Bai Kai would not have died. Fang said he understood and then asked for Bai Kai's number and a secret. Yang asked why he needed that information if they planned to revive Bai Kai. Our boy revealed that he could not bring the dead back to life. Yang looked at him fixedly and Fang added that he had another solution. He could go back to the past and change the future. He realized that, as he was going to go back in time, no one would remember what he had revealed, so the secret would remain a secret. In the room, everyone whispered that it sounded even more exaggerated than resurrecting the dead and that he must be lying. Even Yon said that such a skill would be too powerful for a spiritual master. Our boy repeated his dramatic speech. I am from the spiritual kingdom. I navigate between the future and the past, experiencing countless realities. Ling Zhu noticed that this was his eccentric way of describing his own ability. Our boy then said that he would return to the moment before Bai Kai's death. He would call him and reveal the secret for him to believe. There was no harm in trying, since he was not risking anything. Yang reflected and said that it really made sense, since he had nothing to lose. He gave Fang the number and said that Bai Kai could receive the call because, at that moment, he was in a place with a signal. Yang said that the secret was something that only Bai Kai knew, something that he had planned to keep hidden for the rest of his life. It seemed that he was forced to reveal it. Finally, he admitted that during the captain's selection, he gave Bai Kai a laxative to have stomach pain. As he had the ability of luck, no one suspected anything and everyone thought it was just a coincidence. The room was silent and no one could believe that he had played so dirty. Even the boss said that he did not expect someone so honest to fall so low. Yan said that it was all Bai Kai's fault and blamed the rivalry between them. He stood up and said to forget it, since the man was already dead. Fang, however, simply said that the secret was enough and told Yang to wait for the call. Yang seemed upset, the boss looked disappointed and Lin Shu watched carefully. After a long silence, Fang told them to continue with their meeting. Yang asked the obvious question, if Fang was not going to go back to the past now to do what he said he would do. But Fang asked when he had said that he would do it at that exact moment. The boss accused Fang of lying and ordered Yang to get that strange boy out of the room. Yang agreed and told Fang to follow him. The scene changed to the confinement room. Yang told Fang that they were orders from the director, but not to worry too much about it. At that point, Yang believed that Fang could save Bai Kai, so he did not want to offend him. Fang replied that he understood and asked Yang to explain more about the supernatural creature without a head with which they had fought. Yang lit his cigarette number 100 and said that Bai Kai's ability was super speed. He was just unlucky that that creature had the advantage in his fight. Time passed, many cigarettes were consumed, and the two talked for a while. Finally, someone opened the door. Ling Zhu came in saying that the lottery numbers that Fang wrote were all wrong and told him to take a look. Yang crushed his cigarette and said that Fang would pay to play with Bai Kai's life. Fang looked at the paper and said that now he knew the correct numbers, but Ling Zhu said that the cost of his mistake would be his life. Fang pulled out the scalpel and everyone jumped over. Our boy told them not to worry, he always kept his word. The others prepared to disassemble their weapons and ordered him to stand still, but Fang hit his forehead. He said he would see them earlier in the day. Time went back, a car suddenly stopped, and it was the exact moment he arrived at the office. This time he wrote the correct numbers and gave them to Ling Zhu. As they entered the building, he said that when he turned the corner there would be a man talking on the phone. Indeed, the same man from before passed by talking on his phone. Both were impressed that Fang was already predicting everything. He advanced, and said that the man in the middle row would try to stretch and accidentally hit a girl. Of course, it happened. Ling Zhu looked back, observing the discussion develop. The other investigators seemed to trust that Fang could see the future, but Ling Zhu said they were just logical deductions. However, Fang took the initiative and said he would take them to the room. He opened a cabinet, took out a little tea and served it to both of them. They wondered why the boy was doing everything they were supposed to do. Even a boy added sugar to his coffees. They asked him if he had been there before, to which he replied no, only that his eyes saw the future. In addition, Director Wang was free now, so they should let him know. The scene changed to a car accelerating through a forest. It was Wang who received a call and asked who it was. At that moment, Fang gave him the information that Bai Kai would die in 30 minutes. Yang stepped on the brakes and demanded an explanation, asking who he was talking to. Fang Zhu said he was someone who could see the future and that he was now working with the association. He said that something unexpected would happen in 30 minutes and that Bai Kai would be killed by a supernatural entity. Yang told him to stop joking about people's lives. At that moment, Fang revealed the secret about Yang giving Bai Kai a laxative. Shocked, Yang obviously wanted to know how Fang knew that if he had never told anyone. Fang ignored it and explained everything that would happen to the headless creature and the entity of the shadows. The call ended, and Yang realized that it was too risky not to trust him after this. Yang turned the car and headed for the city of Inbei. Fang knew that now everything depended on Yang. Back at the office, Lin Zhu broke the door by kicking it, saying that it was time for the real test of truth or lie. He was sure that Fang had been calm so far, but he could not lie in front of that device. However, Fang took it in his hands, placed it on the table and activated it, telling him to start over. She sat down, and before he could ask the first question, he already answered that he would fight against supernatural entities. Before he understood what was happening, he already answered the second question, saying that he would not put himself on the side of the entities either. In addition, if his friend joined the creatures, his friendship would end. He continued to answer all the questions until, in the last one, he said that what he most wanted was to kill all the supernatural creatures in this world. The girl had not even reacted yet. She just got up from the table and said that the test had ended, so it was time to see the director. She stayed there, holding the device, wondering if it was broken or if something had failed. The scene changed to the director's office, where he said that it was difficult to believe in Fang's ability to predict the future. Fang simply said that there were people who could not be measured with common sense, so it was impossible to understand. The boss wanted to hit the brat, but in his place he demanded the results of the test. In addition, the red mail indicated that nothing could be marked because Fang predicted each question and answered it correctly. On top of that, the lie detector was not activated. Our boy began to realize that he would need to invent some kind of weakness for people to believe that his ability was legitimate. Then he explained that every time he used that ability, his mind was filled with information, causing a spiritual overload. This made it impossible for him to predict a distant future, and the reason why he was using it so much today was to prove that he had the ability to obtain a spiritual incense. Considering that incense stabilizes spirits, the boss thought that this explanation made a lot of sense. Then he asked Fang what kind of salary he expected, pointing out that spiritual incense was not expensive. Fang said he wanted the salary of a second-level spiritual master plus an extra incense every month. Finally, every time they needed their skills, they would have to pay him a bonus. The director said he could accept part of that, but that the bonus was too much. Fang knelt down in his chair and said that the director did not seem to understand the value of someone who could see the future, but he reassured him by saying that he had already prepared a great gift for the place. Of course, Wang wanted to know what that gift was while he felt an ominous feeling. Fang Xiu smiled and said that today's gift was Bai Kai's life. Naturally, the director stood out, hitting the table and asking if Fang was threatening Bai Kai's life. Fang Xiu simply told him to call Bai Kai at that very moment. The boss looked at Ling Shui, who approached and put his hand on Fang's shoulder, but he remained confident, smiling. Just when Wang picked up the phone, someone opened the door. The boss went to scold the person, but it was Yang, asking if there was a Fang Xiu there. The boss was confused, asking why Yang had returned. Where was Bai Kai and what was going on? Yang said that was irrelevant. Bai Kai was in the hospital at that time and wanted to know where Fang Xiu was. Ling Shui immediately pointed to Fang and asked what he had done to Captain Bai. Fang felt relieved, realizing that Bai Kai being in the hospital meant he was safe. The boss then said that Fang Xiu was the boy who was there, stating that he had brought a great gift for them. Yang smiled and said that it was really an incredible gift. Ling Shui withdrew his hand, and Yang asked Fang if he was the one who called him. Yang hugged him, saying that if it weren't for that message, he would have lost his friend. The two men in the room were completely bewildered, not understanding what was going on. Fang looked at the boss and asked if he was satisfied with the gift. He also told the lady and Ling Shui to stop using his ability on him. Ling Shui wondered if it was really possible that a single call would have saved the life of the city's most important spiritual master. Yang then said that if nothing had been manipulated, he recognized Fang's courage and accepted his conditions. However, he would wait for the lottery results. For now, Fang should be taken to another area. Yang heard this, seemed to realize something, leaned towards Fang's ear and whispered to him that they would meet later. In another room, Fang was sitting with Ling Shui. She thought she had not only predicted his habits, but also knew about his private tattoo. She felt exposed, as if she no longer had secrets from him. What she wanted to understand was why she always seemed to be looking at his neck. Fang, on the other hand, thought he had a long and white neck, just like his wife. He knew that the blood there was warm and wondered if his wife would also bleed in the same way. Considering that she was a ghost, he thought that his blood could feel refreshing if it spilled on him. At that moment, someone opened the door. It was Yang, saying that he wanted to talk in private with Fang. Ling Shui left the room visibly upset. Yang sat down and Fang watched him. Yang's expression suddenly changed and asked if Fang had not told anyone about the accident at the Laxante. Fang realized that the director was very cautious with his ability to see the future, while Yang was only concerned about his bad actions in the past. Fang assured him that, until now, no one else knew, but added that that could change in the future. Yang asked what he meant by that, and Fang replied that it meant that he might have to pay a little more. Yang told Fang Shu that he needed to understand that, in this place, Yang was the captain, while Fang was just a rookie who had just joined. Fang, however, simply replied that Yang should pay him 100 spiritual coins immediately if he did not want anyone to know about the incident. Yang began to protest, but Fang raised the price to 200 coins in the act. Yang demanded to know why he was charging him so much, saying that he only earned 10 spiritual coins and that he could not afford it. When Fang pretended that he was going to reveal the secret, Yang quickly agreed to pay. Sometime later, everyone was gathered again at Wang's office. Yang was lying on the corner, begging the imp to lend him some spiritual coins. Fang realized that he had perhaps exaggerated with his demands. Meanwhile, the results of the lottery were being announced on television. As the numbers were revealed, everyone began to jade in amazement. When numbers 05 appeared, it was confirmed that the numbers that Fang had written were correct. Yang immediately hugged Fang, declaring them brothers in blood and saying that he only wanted the numbers of the next lottery. The boss told him to stop and reminded everyone that the boy's ability was intended to protect the city. Then he told Fang that this was a secret that should be kept absolutely confidential. From now on, they would say that his ability was simply a highly developed intuition and nothing more. The boss officially invited Fang to join his organization. Of course, Fang accepted. Yang then asked how they would inform Fang's information to his superiors. The boss explained that Fang's name would be added to the global list of talents, but the details about his ability would remain an absolute secret. Now with a rank S skill and the title of the prophet, he smiled as he considered all the resources and money that would come in his way. He reflected that soon his wife would have an incredible night. Yang commented that it could be dangerous if more people found out about Fang's ability. He questioned whether it was correct to classify Fang as Class S so quickly, accusing the boss of favoritism. The boss insisted that Fang's power was too valuable to keep him in this city. He would have to be transferred to the main headquarters to maximize his contributions. Then he mentioned that Zhao Ao, Fang's friend who also survived in the same supernatural location, should also join. The plan was to keep someone close to Fang Ziyu in the headquarters, making sure that he would continue in debt with the Ling Zhu organization. However, he pointed out that Zhao Ao's skill was mainly in certain intimate talents, which he considered too vulgar for that place. The boss replied seriously that it didn't matter. He was sure that such a skill would eventually be useful. Fang simply said that they did what they wanted. However, he knew perfectly well that they wanted Zhao Ao as a bargaining chip against him. Then he asked Yang what had happened exactly during the incident with Bai Kai. Yang replied that there was no concrete evidence, but that it seemed intentional. He explained that he had fought against countless spiritual entities, but this one, despite being shrouded in shadows, felt like an anomaly. In addition, he fought like a human. If he had not managed to kill the headless demon and advance to the 3rd level, he would not have had any chance. Yang added that the enemy seemed to be containing himself, since as soon as he advanced in level, the creature dissipated. Then he drew a card that he found on the scene. Seeing the Ace of Spades, Fang Ziyu asked if it was not made of mental steel, and why a supernatural entity would use something like that. Wang Dai commented that this suggested that a spiritual master was behind this, at least, a very powerful organization. This incident was not simple, and they would have to think about it carefully. The scene changed to Fang's apartment, where his wife received him saying that she had missed him after his working day. He looked at his new identification and threw some coins on the table. She praised him, saying that her husband was incredible making money. Fang, however, was curious, knowing that each of those spiritual coins could be sold for hundreds of millions. It was incredible that Captain Yang had gotten so many at once. This was not extortion. It was the way in which Yang thanked him for not revealing his secret. Fang threw a coin into the air, caught it in mid-flight, and wondered how to make the most of it. At first, he considered making an armor, but given his skills, he decided that it was not the best option. As for weapons, he already had the scalpel, so there was no urgent need for another. In addition, 200 coins were not enough to forge a high-level sword. Considering his skills, he did not need a weapon with overwhelming power. He just needed it to be long, small, and sharp enough to damage his enemies. The scalpel was perfect except for the fact that, being a cursed object, he could not display it openly. Maybe making another scalpel to disguise the existence of the first one would be a good idea. With the remaining coins, he planned to buy information in a supernatural form. Suddenly they knocked on the door. If it were the research team, they would have sent him a message. If it were Zhao Ao, he would have called him. He approached cautiously, not being sure which entity could be looking for him. Looking through the crotch, the sweat began to pearl his forehead. A gigantic eye looked at him fixedly, and overwhelming power seemed to pressure him. Moments later, he opened his eyes and shook his head. The room smelled of rotten meat. Bloody tools surrounded him, and he wondered where he was. Looking down, he saw chains. It was then that he realized that he was sitting in a chair, surrounded by a horde of creatures. In front of him there was a grinder, and he could hear the sound of impacts nearby. A man was holding a screwdriver, hitting the wall in front of him. Suddenly, the lunatic turned to him, thanking him for finally waking up. All the creatures in the room turned their heads towards Fang Ziyu. He recognized the man by his red eyes. It was the person who had stared at him just before he lost consciousness. The strange man then commented that Fang had woken up too quickly. It seemed that the new spiritual master was a genius like him. He was very lucky because torturing geniuses was his favorite thing. Fang Ziyu remained calm, analyzing that the man's ability was related to his eyes. He knew that this man was a spiritual master, He had a strange appearance and referred to himself as a genius. Fang asked if the man was Wan Ziting's cousin and questioned if the machine worked properly. For those who do not remember, Wan Ziting was the man from the previous mission with the girl in the investigation office. The man was impressed that Fang recognized him and confirmed that he was Wan Ziting's cousin, Lin Zian. Lin Zian apologized for the rusty state of the machines, as he had not killed anyone for a long time. Fang Xiu calmly replied that Wan Ziting had already mentioned that he had a crazy cousin, and told him to fix the machine quickly because he did not like to waste time. Lin Zian seemed slightly restless, but then began to laugh, saying that Fang was really fascinating. It was a shame that he would soon die and reunite with his cousin. Fang Xiu simply commented that the man clearly had a serious problem, while analyzing that the chaotic and unhealthy behavior of Lin coincided with the descriptions of the forums. Fang then provoked Lin Zian, saying that the funniest part was how Wan Ziting clung to his leg while he died. He stepped on his hand, breaking each bone one by one. The sound of Wan Ziting's screams while being killed was delicious. Lin Zian clenched his fists, murmuring that Fang deserved to die. He promised that Fang would be slowly killed and then turned into street dog food. But Fang Xiu replied that he was not afraid, since Lin was nothing more than a useless person going through a spiritual collapse. It was incredible how useless it was to have been corrupted with such little power. Lin Zian began to curse, murmuring to himself that this should not happen. Fang should be on the ground, kneeling, crying and begging for his life. Decided, Lin began to fix the machine, saying that he could not wait to make Fang suffer. When Fang was reduced to nothing, he wanted to see if he would still act with such confidence. Lin looked for the cruelest tool in his arsenal. Fang Xiu provoked him, saying that he was so useless that he didn't even know what tool to use. Lin turned around and yelled at him to shut up, continuing his search. Clearly, he was more crazy than ever. Finally, Lin selected a tool and declared that it was perfect to tear someone's teeth out who talked too much. He demanded that Fang Xiu beg for forgiveness, but Fang only asked how he preferred to die. Did he prefer that his bones were crushed with a hammer or that they beat him until there was nothing left? Fang suggested that Lin decide soon because, when the time came, he wanted everything to go perfectly. Lin was paralyzed, not knowing how to respond. Fang asked why he hesitated and moved so far away. He warned Lin that he had a perfect scalpel to cut someone into pieces. Although he would like to make at least 1,000 cuts, he admitted that he was not skilled enough and assumed that Lin would die before the 100th. For that, Fang said that Lin should perhaps begin to apologize. Lin Zian covered his face with his hands, murmuring that Fang was the true lunatic suffering a spiritual collapse. He warned that in this place he controlled life and death, and ordered Fang to stop threatening him. Fang Xiu simply replied that life was always in his hands. Then he looked at a creature similar to a nearby snake and asked if he was hungry or if he wanted to eat someone. The creature seemed to look at him, although it was difficult to know, since his eye was also his mouth. Lin Zian asked who Fang was talking to. Fang replied that he was talking to the entity that had come to take Lin's life. The moment Lin Zian recognized the existence of the creature, he froze when he saw it appear before him. Surprised, Lin babbled, asking where that thing had come from and calling Fang the true lunatic. Fang Xiu just smiled and said that there were countless more where they came from. He greeted them all and invited them to manifest. Lin Zian, already on the verge of madness, ended up losing his mind, shouting that everything was an illusion and that it could not be real. Fang Xiu just laughed and, with that, another restart of life began. When he opened his eyes, he was back home with his wife, who was celebrating his return from work. He ignored her and collapsed on the sofa. The feeling of being devoured alive by countless supernatural creatures was not so bad. Another point in favor of his tolerance for pain. At that moment, they knocked on the door. He grabbed his scalpel while his wife asked if they were expecting visitors that night. Fang just thought about giving someone the opportunity to experience a very painful death. At the door, he swore to keep his promise. Looking through the mirror, Lin Zian could hear footsteps approaching. A single look would be enough to activate his ability, but instead the scalpel crossed the door, piercing it directly. As soon as Lin Zian collapsed on the floor, he murmured that it hurt and then lost consciousness, apparently unable to bear the pain. Fang Xiu opened the door, grabbed Zian by the leg and dragged him inside the house. He removed the scalpel from the door and checked if Zian was carrying something suspicious. While Fang Xiu was examining some documents, his wife asked who that person who had brought to his home was. After finding some ordinary objects, Fang discovered something that emitted a slight, supernatural aura, a bronze object that resembled a sword or a candelabrum. He wondered if it could be a cursed artifact. Fang was impressed that Zian possessed something so powerful, although he was still not up to his scalpel. Given how easily Zian was subjected with a single blow, Fang concluded that he had probably not yet reached level 2. When checking Zian's phone, Fang saw that he was part of an organization called the Light Club. It seemed that this group of low-level spiritual masters sought spiritual incense to keep calm. Fang noticed an order to deliver to a warehouse, suspecting that in a previous timeline, when Zian went to deliver, they had killed him. After writing down the address of the warehouse, Fang commented that now the roles were reversed, it was time to show what true cruelty was. He carried Zian on his shoulder and left the house. Shortly after, Zian woke up, disoriented and without knowing where he was. His eye bled and wondered what had happened. It was then that he realized that he was in the same warehouse. The problem was that, this time, he was the one who was tied up. He heard a familiar mechanical sound, the same one he always made when torturing others. Next to him, Fang Xiu commented that Zian took a long time to wake up, but he did it at the right time. Fang pressed a button and the machine began to work, now repaired. Zian demanded to know who Fang was. Fang asked how it was possible that he did not recognize him after calling his door in the middle of the night. Zian shouted Fang Xiu's name, and Fang congratulated him for remembering it. Approaching, Fang said it was time for the 1,000 cuts. He explained that he had left Zian's eyes intact because he wanted him to see everything that would happen. As Fang had said before, His lives had always been in his hands. Zion asked what Fang wanted and why he was doing this. He insisted that they had never seen each other, and claimed that he only went to the apartment to invite Fang to join the light club. Fang Xiu ruled out that excuse, saying that Zion was wrong. This was for the revenge of his cousin, Wang Xiting. Zion panicked, unable to understand how his identity had been exposed or how Fang knew about his revenge plan. He tried to justify the death of his cousin, claiming that Wang Xiting was not a good person, so it did not matter that he was dead. But Fang Xiu coldly replied that it was too late for that. The family had to remain united. If one cousin died, the other had to follow him. With that, the promise began, and Zion was about to meet his end. Terrified, Zion shouted that it hurt, wondering if his body was being destroyed. In reality, there was only a small cut on his chest. He turned to ask why such a tiny wound hurt so much and what kind of blade Fang was using. But then he began to scream again when the 1,000 cuts briefly began. Time passed, and soon Zion begged for death. Fang Xiu commented that Zion's spiritual energy had finally calmed down. He promised to grant him a quick death if he answered a question. What was that bronze candelabrum and how was it used? Zion explained that he could repel supernatural attacks. By injecting spiritual energy and fresh blood into him, the user could defend himself against any attack within his range. However, the stronger the attacking creature, the faster the blood would be consumed. Fang Xiu then asked how much spiritual energy Zion had awakened and why he lost control. Zion admitted that he had awakened 20%, but lost control as he tried to advance to level 2. The failure blocked the evolution of his body while his mind became more and more contaminated by the spirits. Fang Xiu continued to interrogate him, demanding information about the Light Club, its members, its abilities and everything else. Zion agreed, revealing that the leader of the organization was a second-level spiritual master. 30 minutes later, Zion insisted that he had already told Fang everything and begged him to kill him. Fang Xiu thanked him for the answers, but added that it was a shame that they were still far from reaching the 1,000 cut. Desperate, Zion shouted that Fang was a shameless liar. Fang simply told him to enjoy the pain. Zion shouted to heaven, swearing revenge and cursing Fang repeatedly. But then, suddenly, he stopped. Fang Xiu notices this silence and asks why the screams have ceased. Blue bubbles begin to emerge from Zion's body, traveling towards his head and entering his eye. Spiritual energy overflows through his body, and Fang wonders if this is a total loss of control. Zion seems to be suffering a mutation. Not being sure of what is happening, Fang decides to disable Zion's ability to move. He cuts off his limbs and the joints fall to the ground. Zion shudders and lowers his head. Fang Xiu wonders if he managed to interrupt the mutation or if it was just too severe. It is then that he hears a strange sound coming from Zion's body. Approaching cautiously, he sees the cursed eye emerging from Zion's face. Overwhelmed, he observes how the entity moves through Zion's head. A dark energy fills the room as the creature rises, observing its surroundings. Curiously, Fang Xiu smiles and says, "This is quite interesting." The demon looks at Fang and tries to activate his power. Objects shoot out at Fang Xiu, but he quickly pulls out his scalpel and cuts them in the air. However, the creature dodges and begins to climb on his arm. He quickly ascends to his face, directing himself directly to his eyes. Just before reaching them, he catches him, preventing him from possessing him. However, due to his proximity to his eye, he is partially affected. His grip weakens and the creature jumps on his head. At that moment, his vision darkens. The eye that had been looking at the creature seems to be consumed, leaving a sinister mark on his face. Fang Xiu desperately tries to tear the creature by the tail, but it slips. Persistent, he digs with his fingers, but the parasite, now embedded in his eye, begins to interact with his brain. The creature begins to link with his body. Fang Xiu's vision returns, although everything on one side is red blood. It is evident that his eye has been completely taken by the entity. His eye contracts, turning uncontrollably, while a voice resounds in his mind, speaking of the King of Swords and the fragility of flesh, insinuating a supernatural ascension. The creature declares its intention to take control of Fang Xiu's body, imprison his consciousness, and trap him in an eternal cycle of pain. Fang Xiu laughs and asks if they really believe they can make him feel pain, pretending that his tolerance exceeds the creature's. The monster threatens to devour all the loved ones of Fang Xiu once he takes control. But suddenly, the creature is in the dark, confused about where it is. While reviewing Fang Xiu's memories, he realizes something. This is not a common human mind. Fang Xiu's voice resonates, asking the creature if that was all the pain he could bear. He promises to show him the true meaning of suffering. Desperate, the monster tries to flee, begging to avoid whatever awaits him. Then something breaks. Fang Xiu proclaims that with the death of Lin Zion, he is now the master of the blood pupil. The ability of this cursed eye is to cause a spiritual shock when someone looks at it, generating a mental contamination capable of killing unprepared individuals. In addition, it can induce hallucinations through direct visual contact. Fang Xiu feels a sharp pain in the chest and realizes that his spiritual energy has dropped by 5%. Absorbing the blood pupil also absorbed all the energy he possessed. If this is possible, it means that he can continue to kill supernatural entities and become stronger over time. The question now is how exactly did he consume the energy? This time it was easy, since the energy abandoned Lin Zion's body and tried to enter Fang's mind. But opportunities like this may not occur in the future. Fang Xiu remembers the creature's mention of the swordstick and wonders if this was part of a bigger plan. The grinder buzzed, and Lin Zion took his last trip. Fang Xiu murmured that he did not know exactly who Lin was, but he would thank him in the next life. He rarely fed the dogs. Fang considers that the president of the Club of Light will probably send someone to recover the bronze candelabrum. Human relations are strange. Just because he killed a person, now he will have to deal with his entire clan. A presentation card in Lin Xian's coat mentions the Blackpink bar. For now, Fang decides that it is time to establish connections before facing the entire organization. Fast as always, he soon arrives at the bar and enters. Scanning the room, he detects several characters, blocked, including one with green hair and another who drinks juice while he stares at him. The bartender receives him and asks him what he wants to order. Fang Xiu replies that he would like a black rose with 24 petals. The bartender stops in the middle of the cleaning, apologizes and says that they do not serve that drink there. Fang calmly clarified that he was not asking for the drink, but for the flower. The bartender's expression changed and asked Fang to follow him. Pressing a button, a door opened, and the man told him to follow the path where someone would receive him. While Fang Xiu was walking down the hall, he thought they had hidden quite well. When turning a corner, he found two guards in front of a door. These people were much more cautious than the investigation office. One of the guards stopped him, asking for his membership card, and warning him that any conflict was strictly prohibited inside. After registering it, they accepted Lin Xian's card and granted him access, wishing him a good night. As he crossed the door, Fang felt a strange sensation. When he opened his eyes, he found himself in a large room full of numerous people. Considering that there were less than 100 spiritual masters throughout the city, having even a dozen in one place was impressive. A striking woman approached, asking him what he wanted for the night. Without hesitation, Fang Xiu claimed that he wanted to kill someone. The scene changed to a private room where only the two of them were. Fang asked how much it would cost to assassinate the president of the Club of Light. The woman explained that, as the leader of a powerful group and a second-level spiritual master, significant resources would be required. Fang insisted on knowing the price, and she revealed that for someone of that level, they did not accept money, only spiritual coins or high-value spiritual materials. She estimated the cost at a minimum of 5,000 coins. Fang began to ask about several members of the Club of Light. Tang Wanyuan would cost 1,000 spiritual coins, while Likiwa would only cost 200. Confused, Fang Xiu asked why it was so cheap to kill Likiwa. The woman replied that the information on these matters also had a cost. Fang hit the table with his hand, demanding that he explain immediately. Apparently, when he hit the table, he had accidentally placed some coins on it. She sighed and said she was fine. The reason why Kiwa was so cheap to kill was because his skills were limited to perception and his combat power was low. However, the reason why the information about him was expensive was because he was the president's cousin. Fang was surprised at how frequent it was to meet cousins in this city. The woman asked if she planned to cancel the order or move on. Fang replied that he loved to start with the cousins and asked when the operation would begin and what would happen if they failed. She explained that the operation would begin in a week, and that she had to install an application called Already Dead to receive confirmation when the target was eliminated. Suddenly, messages appeared on her phone. She apologized, saying she was busy with other tasks. If the murder failed, Fang could recover half of her money or pay a higher price for a stronger killer. She gave him a contract, assuring him that everything was guaranteed. When Fang put his hand on the paper, he felt the energy of a supernatural artifact. She praised his sharpness, explaining that the artifact guaranteed that they could find him if he did not pay the remaining balance. Realizing that signing with a false name would not make a difference, Fang completed the contract. The woman thanked him for her business and said she hoped to work with him again. Fang left the establishment, holding his eye and murmuring that everything was going as planned. 200 spiritual coins were a fair price to eliminate a member of the Club of Light. The next day, Zhao Ao found out that Fang Xiu had joined the investigation office. In the director's office, someone mentioned turbulent temples and collaborations with spiritual masters from other areas. Wang Dai informed Fang that, for now, he would continue training with his team. Zhao Ao commented that it was good news that Fang had not yet been transferred. Yang intervened, saying that they were brothers by heart and that Fang should send him a message if he ever needed anything. The director then went to Yang, asking him about the investigation of the swordsmen and the condition of Bai Kai. Yang explained that the swordsman organization was part of a massive group known as the Poker Club. He added that Bai Kai was recovering mentally, but could not yet move properly. The director thanked him and instructed them both to complete their initial training before officially starting work. Zhao Ao enthusiastically accepted. Meanwhile, Fang Xiu was impressed by the magnitude of the organization. The theoretical training began, with a woman teaching the appropriate approach methods. Zhao Ao, however, had his gaze lost, clearly distracted. Later, during the practical training, Zhao Ao kept a fruit in his head, begging for mercy. Fang Xiu, stabbing a stick, broke the fruit with precision. A week passed and Fang completed his training with firearms. Bored by the lack of supernatural entities, he checked his phone to see if the murder request had been fulfilled. The application notified him that the order was complete, and he opened it to see the details. The scene changed to a building in the middle of the city. Around a table, someone mentioned the name of Lin Xian and the bronze candelabrum. They also talked about Zhuo, throwing a glass to the ground with frustration and demanding to know who was attacking them. It was clear that the Club of Light was under attack. A woman approached, asking the furious young Master Ma to calm down. Sitting on his lap, he assured him that he should not stress so much. Master Ma took a sip of wine, but stopped, detecting a peculiar smell. The woman made a gesture with her hand, indicating that she had been working. Realizing what he meant, he asked furiously how he dared to touch him with a mouth that had just worked so hard. She laughed, telling him not to get angry, assuring that he was only playing with others, but that he had it in his heart. Clearly, Master Ma was the cuckold of the association. The woman promised to solve all his problems in a week. The scene changed to the hospital where Bai Kai was recovering. He mentioned that he had recovered most of his mobility, but that he was not yet fit for combat. In a video call with the director, Bai Kai was informed that he had to rest, while his missions would be assigned to another group for the moment. The group's goal was to eliminate the supernatural creatures from the hospital. Yang recommended that Fang Xiu join the mission, given his previous experience there. The director disagreed, claiming that Fang's power was too important to risk it on a C-rank mission. Yan replied, assuring that there was not much difference between C-rank and B-rank missions. The director replied that this distinction only made sense for third-level spiritual masters. For most, the difference was a matter of life or death. He insisted that they should be cautious, especially with the appearance of the poker club and Bai Kai still hospitalized. Poor Bai Kai, still recovering in the hospital, commented bitterly that, with Yon's absurd luck, everyone else would die before anything happened to him. Yang responded with challenge, saying that a real man faces the challenges head-on and is not afraid to die. Bai Kai took his hand to his face. While the director instructed someone to call Fang Xiu face-to-face with the young man, the director informed Fang that he had a very important mission for him. However, Fang coldly declared that he would not accept anything that was not related to supernatural events. The director then explained that the mission consisted of investigating a supernatural incident in the town of Blackwater. Fang took the file, commenting that he had never heard of that place. The director explained that it was a remote location in the mountainous region. Due to the difficult terrain, it received very few visitors. The town was named after a black river that crossed it. The incident involved a series of recent floods. Initially, it was believed that they were isolated events, but now the villagers claimed that there was an entity that grabbed people by the feet and dragged them to the river. More recently, something even worse had been happening. It was reported that people slept quietly in their homes, only to wake up next to the river, being dragged to the water. After investigations, the entity in the area had been named the Spirit of Water, with an initial rating of C rank. Fang Xiu found this quite interesting. The association paid 10 spiritual coins for solving missions of rank D, and 100 for missions of rank C. With his agreement to receive double, this would be enough to buy another murder of a member of the Light Club. The director emphasized that Fang's identity must remain absolutely confidential during this mission. For that reason, Ling Shu would lead the team. Fang agreed, thanking him and telling him that he understood, while they thought how strange it was to use his scalpel. Lately, he had tried to take revenge on his wife repeatedly. However, she was much stronger than him, restarting the timeline every time, which had ruined all the fun. The director, noticing Fang's unusually strong murderous intention, wondered why the young man suddenly seemed so thirsty for blood. Then he informed Fang that, in addition to Ling Xiu, he would also have a partner on the mission, just like Ling Xiu had Wang Gao by his side. The director picked up the phone and called someone named Kexen, telling him to come in. Fang Xiu heard footsteps approaching. Outside the door, someone murmured to himself, "I can do it." He took a deep breath and opened the door suddenly. The person who came in was his Kexen, the new assistant assigned to Fang. He greeted the director cheerfully. The director introduced Fang, explaining that he was there to assist him in his work. However, Fang Xiu was not naive. He knew that she had gone through a training of a spiritual master before arriving there. This meant that when he murmured those words outside the door, he did it on purpose, knowing that his sharp senses would catch them. His Kexen made a polite reverence, introduced herself by her name, and mentioned that her code was 1327. Fang Xiu passes by her, telling her not to send messages unless it is something important and to avoid nonsense talks. Kexen is surprised by his reaction, but he simply walks out the door, saying that he did well, but that it would be better to moderate the next time. Now I don't know if she is confused that she has been discovered or if she simply thinks that he is crazy. Outside, he receives the friendship request and notices that he really looks like a cute and common girl. However, to be in this profession, he was definitely far from being. She sends a message trying to explain that there was a misunderstanding, but right at that moment, someone calls him from the side. It is Lin Zhu, casually dressed, looking at the girl and telling her to hurry. In the car, a chubby guy with an orange jacket appears. He is the researcher Liu Shuai, and his special ability as a spiritual master is teleportation. Diao gets excited, and says that he never thought he would meet someone with a skill better than his. Shuai asks what his skill is, and Zhao feels ashamed to answer. From the rearview mirror, Lin Zhu tells him not to be shy and simply explain his complicated skill. Then he says that, as a leader, he will introduce everyone first. She is Fang Zhu, with a fire skill, and Shuai already presented his teleportation skill. Zhao is ashamed to share his skill because it involves something sexual. The chubby guy laughs, saying that he had never met a brother with such power. He jokes about what kind of combat he could have against supernatural creatures. But the chubby guy stops laughing when Lin Zhu says that his ability to teleport 10 centimeters per hour is also garbage. Zhao adds that 10 centimeters is not even the size of the combat tool he uses. The chubby guy replies that nowadays he has evolved to 20 centimeters every half hour. While they argue, Lin Zhu loses patience. He creates a fire explosion, leaving both stunned, warning that the next person who opens his mouth will be thrown into the river when they reach the site of the mission. Inadvertently, they apologize and remain silent. Fang Zhu finds it strange that for a rank C incident they send a fighter and 3 others who are not very helpful. Either the mission is simpler than he thinks, or the research office is short of staff. For now, he decides not to think too much about it, as everything will be clear once they reach the village. A while later, the car breaks and they finally reach the village of Blackwater. They all get out of the car and observe the village engulfed in the forest. In the middle of a dense black fog, you can see some lights in motion. Feng Xiu notices that there are people in front of them. Suddenly someone approaches. An old man with a lighthouse asks if she is Miss Chen from the television station. She says yes and recognizes him as the head of the village, Buon Jiujai. Jiujai introduces his grandson, Fuji, and tells them to accompany him, since they must be tired from the trip. Feng Xiu says she is not hungry, so Jiujai offers to prepare water for them to take a bath. The scene changes to Ling Zhu bathing, and there is a small mark on his leg that is difficult to distinguish. However, he seems to be alert for something. He mutters to himself that he will have to be cautious at all times here. He leaves the bathroom and asks if anyone noticed anything unusual. The group is sitting at the table and Sui says no. Then she tells them to be careful, since they will investigate the Black River in the morning. The supernatural force that strikes this place will be there. But Feng Xiu suddenly pronounces the word hair. Ling Zhu turns to him, confused, and he explains that the quality of everyone's hair here is unusually good. Especially the boss, who must be over 80 years old, still does not have a single white hair. Sui jokes that the man must dye his hair, but Feng Xiu says he does not think that is the case. Ling Zhu stays silent for a moment and admits that Feng Xiu is right. In a town where everyone has known each other for so long, an old man like that would not feel the need to dye his hair. In addition, he would have to travel to several cities to do so, which makes no sense. She tells the three of them to sleep in the same room and turn to watch. Suddenly, Feng Xiu stands up. Cao Ao asks what he will do if he meets a supernatural creature, but Feng Xiu does not answer and simply leaves. Outside, he reflects that the problem of staying together is that he will not meet any supernatural creature. At this moment, he wants to make it as easy as possible for them to appear. And at this moment, there is something crucial that no one has noticed yet. He looks around and to the sky, but there is not a single supernatural creature in the area. Lying in bed later, he comments that this is the first time he has encountered a situation like this since the domain of the hospital. At that moment, the connection between the supernatural world and the real world made the creatures take on a physical form. Perhaps the town is under something similar and the physical creatures have not yet appeared. However, one difference is that his phone still has a signal. The night begins to pass. A dark energy approaches the bed and his feet. In an instant, he seems to be swallowed by the darkness. He feels an intense cold and wonders why he is hearing the sound of the water. Suddenly, he wakes up startled and turns around, wondering if the creature has appeared. He looks around and sees darkness everywhere. The bed trembles and the sound of the water is heard. Then he grabs his phone, when turning on the flashlight, that he is in the river. And of course, it is the river of black water. The scene changes to Lin Sui being hit by a strong flash of light. He wakes up, stands up and asks who is approaching. A voice says that it is him, that it is our boy with his phone, pointing at him with the light. She asks when he entered the room and what he plans to do that night. He simply tells her to look around before making hasty conclusions. All the beds are in the river and the others are still sleeping peacefully. She asks where they are and what happened. At that moment, Zhao wakes up, wanting to know what is happening. Suddenly someone grabs him from one side. He is Sui, terrified, asking why they ended up in the river. Zhao only shouts for someone to take the crazy fat man off his neck. Fan Xiu explains that this is the supernatural river where the incidents are happening. Curiously, at that moment they are being dragged to the center. The two clasp each other, saying that there is a cyclone in the middle of the lake that is pulling them. Seeing his reaction, Lin Sui takes his hand to his face. He orders them to stop talking nonsense and use their hands to row away from the center. However, Fan Xiu knows that this is not normal. A creature capable of teleporting so many people to the river would not let them escape so easily. Sui tries to row, but soon realizes that something is wrong. He says it's not working. No matter how hard he tries, they are not moving. Zhao Ao suggests swimming, but Lin Sui warns that the river is the creature's control area. That's the only thing they absolutely shouldn't do. In addition, as the best fighter on the team, his fire ability is useless against an enemy based on water. That means that, at best, he can only defend himself for now. Zhao Ao then asks Fan Xiu what they are going to do, since the whirlwind is pulling them harder. It is then that he notices something strange and asks what Fan Xiu is doing. Our protagonist has a suitcase full of tools. He ties a rope to one end, stands up and begins to balance it. He gets ready to throw it and throws it, hitting a tree later. The rope is secured, and he tells everyone to come and grab their beds. The mattresses are approaching, and, soon, everyone is holding onto the rope. He begins to pull them all to the shore. Lin Sui is impressed by how calm he is and the excellent decisions he is making. Little by little, they approach the shore, and Zhao Ao celebrates, praising Fan Xiu's cunning. However, Lin Sui looks back and notices that the whirlwind has disappeared. Everyone turns to see that the water is now calm. Fan Xiu knows that the whirlwind marked the place where the supernatural creature was, or let them escape. Or there is another reason. She warns everyone that they will soon be attacked. Zhao Ao jumps over, and everyone feels a tremor when Lin Sui suddenly falls on her bed. She warns that the creature is pulling her mattress. She takes her phone and approaches to investigate. Fan Xiu follows her to take a look. In the water, there seem to be shadows, but they could only be part of the vegetation. Suddenly, his expression changes and unleashes a fire attack towards the lake. It is then that the river of black water begins to flood his bed. He knows that he cannot cause damage, but at least he can prevent the creature from dragging them under the water. Suddenly, the mattresses turn around and everyone is thrown into the water. Sui clings to Zhao Ao, both terrified, saying that they are being pulled. But Fan Xiu quickly hits Sui in the neck. Sui faints and Zhao Ao even thanks her. A while later, Sui is tied to the rope while everyone gets out of the lake. Zhao Ao wonders if they are really going to the shore, while Fan Xiu reflects on why they were not attacked despite having fallen into the water. Suddenly, Fan Xiu stops and looks back. Lin Sui seems healthier and radiant every day. Wow, friend, she even notices your looks. Calm down. She asks awkwardly that everyone is looking. Fan Xiu simply tells him to light the fire at once. The water creature fears his power, so he needs to burn all his energy to force it to appear. Confused, she asks what they will do once his energy runs out and the creature manifests, considering that no one else has combat abilities. He assures her not to worry, that he has a way of handling it. Still in doubt, she activates his power. Zhao Ao celebrates, joking that now the water feels like a thermal source. After a while, she says she can no longer continue, completely exhausting her spiritual energy. Fan Xiu knows the time has come. He hears noises behind him. Zhao Ao alerts them that this time there is something supernatural in the lake. Fan Xiu looks and sees several green worms approaching. The strange energy is also surrounding Lin Sui, who asks what they are going to do. The protagonist smiles, apparently complacent. Suddenly, he immerses himself in the lake, activates his vision ability and begins to swim. He soon discovers that what is dragging them is hair. Apparently, this coincides with what he noticed about the villagers. Suddenly, the worms begin to wrap their arms in their bodies. However, with a simple blow from his hand, the creature disperses. This is the type of creature he hates the most, the one that attacks, and then tries to flee. Then, he continues swimming towards the bottom of the lake, pulling out his scalpel while he feels the presence of a monster. Hidden under a mass of hair, there was a woman dressed in white, with a monstrous and grotesque face. She continues to cut her hair with her scalpel, canceling her attacks with her ability. The problem is that she is running out of air. She can't get to the surface because she would block it, so she has to end this here and now. Suddenly, she grabs him by the neck with hands that feel like they are made of steel. She is strangling him, which only makes the situation more intense for him. He counterattacks with another blow, forcing her to feel pain. While she smiles, another creature emerges, a grotesque monstrosity, similar to a twisted elf with a pig-like appearance. Twisted and bizarre, she demands him to stop. It seems strange to her that, after only 2 simple attacks, she is already asking for mercy. Perhaps aquatic monsters are particularly fragile. But then, the hair tears off the woman's head and nothing far through the lake. It is then that she realizes that the body was not part of the supernatural entity. She goes to the surface to get her breath back, informing the others that, unfortunately, the creature escaped and that everyone must head to the shore. They all come out of the river, dragging Sui with them. Ling Sui mentions that someone will have to do RCP and asks which of the two will do it. Zhao Ao suggests that she do it, since she is a woman. Fan Xiu takes a step forward in her place. She blushes and asks if she really is not going to doubt at all. In response, he slaps Sui in the face, making her immediately spit water. A strange energy invades Sui's chest, who suddenly wakes up in panic, demanding to know who hit him. Zhao Ao jokes that Sui was pretending to be unconscious just to receive a kiss from the Shen researcher. Fan Xiu calmly declares that there was a corpse under the water and that the supernatural entity was the hair attached to it. In addition, the head of the village hair is identical to that of the creature, so they cannot return to the village tonight. Fan Xiu mentions the woman's corpse and says that, if he could only repel the creature, he can definitely be defeated once he recovers. Then he calls his assistant, Su Kexen. When she answers, she asks why he is calling her so late. He simply tells her to notify the headquarters to send a special operations team with many water bombs to this location. She is confused and asks if this has to do with the mission and why she needs that. He replies that he does not need to know. He just has to inform Day that it is a request of his. Then he explains to the group that, with water bombs, it will be easy. The river is wide, but only this section has black water, so they only need to block the flow before it reaches this area. Once dry, dealing with the monster will be easy. The three seem skeptical, but admit that the plan makes sense. Lin Shu agrees, pointing out that, in an era where spiritual masters are rarer than money, this could be the easiest way. However, Fan Xiu does not care about the easy or difficult path. If he can make the supernatural creature suffer, he will be satisfied. The next morning, outside the village, the bonfire goes out and someone announces that the operations team has arrived. Everyone gets up, and Fan Xiu, already wearing sunglasses, declares that it is time to head for the Black Lake. As they cross the town, the locals who work in the fields wonder if the group comes from the city. The women admire Lin Shu, commenting on his beautiful clothes and shiny hair. She blushes, not knowing how to respond. Meanwhile, the men observe the villagers' hair, noting that it is as impeccable as the boss's. The operations team has blocked the area and is installing water bombs. They begin to drain the river, warning Fan Xiu to stay behind, since it is not a place for tourists. But he advances, showing his credentials. An armed officer informs him of the situation, but a woman with white hair questions if he is the leader of the team and what he is doing with the river. Ignoring her, he passes the barricade and orders the others to clear the area. The two are escorted by someone who explains that they are only tourists trying to enjoy the Black River. Fan Xiu ignores the comments and asks if everything is ready. The officer confirms, and he gives the order to start draining the river. The water bombs quickly dry the river, and Fan Xiu marvels at its efficiency. He reflects that if conventional weapons were not so useless against supernatural creatures, spiritual masters would not even be necessary. 3 hours later, the riverbed is dry. Among the mud, you can see the creature that killed the previous night. Now it is clear why Fan Xiu wears sunglasses. He can use his vision ability without anyone noticing. On the ground, he detects a strange black creature with red marks. He orders Ling Shui to unleash his flames and attack the remaining water puddle. He suspects that he is witnessing a future event and immediately gives the order. The flames hit the puddle directly, and after retreating in agony, something rises towards the sky. They all contain the breath when the entity appears, spreading through the area. Ling Shui swears revenge for the cold night in the water, but suddenly, Fan Xiu hears a metallic sound. It is the sound of a weapon being hammered. He turns around and sees a trembling soldier pointing at him with a weapon. Cao Ao demands to know what they are doing, reminding them that they are all on the same side. Then Ling Shui advances, shouting at the soldiers to lower their weapons if they do not want to die. A soldier shouts that they cover themselves because he cannot control his own body. Suddenly, everyone starts shooting and chaos breaks out, as if his thirst for blood had been activated. Fan Xiu watches the scene, thinking that perhaps time has reverted again. He looks at the woman with white hair and continues to complain, asking what right she takes such actions. Using his ability, he notices that the soldiers look like normal people, without signs of abnormality. Even so, for security, he neutralizes the two closest, leaving everyone stunned. A blow to the neck and the woman collapses on the ground. He pulls out his scalpel, wondering if he judged too quickly or if they were really just ordinary people. Either way, his synchronization had been too convenient. Xiu and the rest of the group are frozen, pointing it out with disbelief and demanding to know why he did that. He declares that the soldiers were suspicious and orders everyone to drop their weapons and continue draining the water. However, Ling Shui disobeyed his order, telling the group not to drop their weapons and suggesting that Fang Xiu could have lost control of his spirit. Fang Xiu replies that if he says that someone is suspicious, then he is. Zhao Ai noted his sharp attitude and suspects that he has discovered something. The soldiers, doubtful, comment that if Shen Ling Shui is present, it could be safe to follow the orders. Once again, Fang Xiu orders Ling Shui to attack the water puddle. Ling Shui unleashes a fire attack, revealing the creature again, this time with a corpse attached to his head. Enraged, Ling Shui charges a huge fire attack and throws it at the monster. The smoke rises and someone exclaims that the entity has been destroyed, but the soldiers suddenly move to attack, claiming that they have lost control of their bodies. Fang Xiu realizes that the entity was not really destroyed or that his curse did not dissipate with his death. Without hesitation, Fang Xiu neutralizes the entire squad. The group collapses, begging him to stop. But he didn't really kill anyone, he just immobilized them and ordered their arrest. With the help of his team, everyone is soon tied up. Shuai thanks Fang Xiu, saying that thanks to him they were not shot down. Fang Xiu, already with his phone in hand, requests an examination of all those involved in the operation. He speculates if the special operations team was being controlled by a different entity than the one they were hunting. Then he declares that it is time to return to the Blackwater village. Back in the village, everyone is there with their normally beautiful hair. Someone comments that they should have returned to normal after the entity's death. Cao Ao adds that, the more he observes the villagers, the more restless he feels. Someone mentions that the best way to deal with an entity is to eliminate everything until normality returns. Of course, it is Fang Xiu who says this, approaching a car while commenting that his hair is better cared for than that of most young people. He asks the village chief how he keeps him so impeccable. The chief laughs, saying that he loves to tell jokes and that his hair has been white for more than a decade. Fang Xiu smiles, confirming the presence of a supernatural entity. With a quick movement of his scalpel, the chief falls dead. Ling Shu begins to protest, but notices something strange. The chief's head is tied to his body by strands of hair. Everyone is stunned, realizing that the chief had been possessed. The chief's body begins to levitate. Nearby footsteps are heard as all the villagers advance towards them. Ling Shu declares that everyone in the village is a slave to the entity. With so many creatures present, this is no longer a C-rank task, and it is at least B-rank. As they flee, Fang Xiu understands why he could not see any supernatural creature in the village. It is because everyone in the village had already been consumed. Ling Shu notes that Fang Xiu's scalpel is a spiritual weapon and says that it will clear a path, so that he can end the entity. The battle begins and Fang Xiu cuts through the wave of enemies. However, his AI is soon overcome, with hair entering his mouth, nose and eyes. Ling Shu, exhausted, also falls. Zhao Ao is absorbed, leaving Fang Xiu as the last one standing. He still has some tricks up his sleeve, but he does not want to use them until he knows who is behind all this. Even so, it is clear that he will not escape alive if all his allies have already died. He contemplates taking his own life, reasoning that if he dies, no creature will be able to kill him. But the deeper he goes, the more the mystery of this place intensifies. He calls his Kexen, instructing her to alert the operations team and bring gasoline to surround the entire village. The team questions his plan with gasoline. He responds without rolling that they are going to burn the entire village to the ground. The scene changes to the woman with white hair, who is being used as a chair by an assistant. Another man helps her bathe while she complains how easily Fang Xiu frustrated the seeds he planted in the operations team. Frustrated, she kicks the assistant and says that they will have to find another opportunity, but for now they are trapped in the mountains. The annoying man begins to sing a sharp melody, asking loudly why Fang Xiu refuses to die obediently. Shortly after, all the barrels of gasoline arrive. Fang Xiu informs Ling Zhu that there are no longer any living people in the village, and that they must destroy everything to resolve the incident. She replies that if what she is saying is true, this place is a B-rank area and they would need reinforcements. He keeps silent, which leads her to ask what is happening. He questions how many spiritual masters are readily available and how many of them are still beginners. In addition, when it was the last time his judgment was wrong, he would not take unnecessary risks. The village of Blackwater no longer had a reason to exist. They spent all day spreading gasoline until 10 at night. Zhao Ao tells Fang Xiu that there is no point left where the fire does not spread. Then he orders Ling Zhu to start the task. She activates her ability and the flames begin to consume the forest. Naturally, the village is trapped in the fire, being quickly engulfed by its powerful fire. The flames are so intense that everything will surely be reduced to ashes. Zhao Ao doubts if Fang Xiu is absolutely sure that they were all spirit puppets. If this were not the case, this could become one of the worst crimes in the history of the city. Xue points out that it is strange that no one is screaming despite the intense flames. Meanwhile, Fang Xiu remains there with his hands in his pockets, waiting for the monster to rebel. He keeps his gaze fixed upwards until, in the middle of hell, a creature emerges. His roar is so deafening that everyone covers their mouths in amazement. Fang Xiu smiles, sighing, "So you have finally shown yourself." The monster advances between the flames, announcing that he originally had no intention of killing him, but since he destroyed her house,